Chapter 4798. We also found the secret method of refining stone puppets in the storage ring. I have already imprinted a complete copy of the secret method in this jade tube. If you are interested, you can find some time to study it. Hannah Mirage took out another jade tube and passed it to Lin Feng. Lin Feng kept the jade tube. He did not expect Hannah Mirage to be so considerate. Was this still the Hannah Mirage that he knew in the past? Thank you. Lin Feng smiled and said. Hannah Mirage said, Why are you being so courteous? We are old friends. The three of them did not stay for long. They left the deep region of the cloudy heaven ancient forest. Lin Feng planned to head to White Bone City. He wondered if Taoist Wu Liang, Du Zhu, and the rest had reached White Bone City. As for Hannah Jinxi and Hannah Mirage, they planned to return to their families. Our family is located in the Forsaken Heaven region. If you ever come to the Forsaken Heaven region, you must find us at the Hua family of the Forsaken Heaven region. Hannah Jinxi said, You came to the Forsaken Heaven region and did not look for us. If I find out, I will definitely beat you up. Hannah Mirage waved her fist and said. She always said those words. She wanted to beat Lin Feng up so badly that his teeth would fall out. However, this wasn't an easy task. The Forsaken Heaven region was the place that Lin Feng wanted to go. As the Forsaken Heaven Ridge was in the Forsaken Heaven region, Lin Feng wanted to go there to look for the stone scripture. Therefore, the Forsaken Heaven region was a place that Lin Feng had to go. Lin Feng said, All right, when I go to the Forsaken Heaven region, I will definitely look for you. Then it's a promise. Hannah Jinxi and Hannah Mirage said in unison. Lin Feng bid farewell to the sisters, Hannah Jinxi and Hannah Mirage. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. If a man was too outstanding, it was easy to attract a group of beautiful butterflies. This was something that couldn't be helped. Lin Feng suddenly had an idea. When the world was at peace in the future, he would build a huge harem. Take these beauties. They were all taken into the harem. After thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but grin. This idea seemed to be a bit too evil. However, this idea was indeed quite tempting. It was hard to say what would happen in the future. No one could say for sure what would happen in the future. They would just have to wait and see. Lin Feng flew towards White Bone City. 1 month later, Lin Feng finally saw White Bone City on the horizon. It was a huge and ancient city. White Bone City had a long history and was one of the oldest cities in the White Bones region. Inside White Bone City, it was extremely lively. Many of the major forces in the White Bones region had set up branches in White Bone City. The forces in White Bone City were tangled and complicated. No one force could occupy the absolute dominance. Therefore, White Bone City was a city that didn't care about rules and only cared about strength. Such a place was often more chaotic. However, such a place was also the favorite place of those evil cultivators. After Lin Feng arrived at White Bone City, the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Lin Feng and the two great ghost emperors had a master-servant connection. Therefore, when Lin Feng arrived at White Bone City, he sensed the aura of the two great ghost emperors. Note, originally, he also had a master-servant connection with Du Zhu and the evil Lord Saint. However, because Du Zhu and the evil Lord Saint were loyal to Lin Feng removed the great purification on them. Lin Feng followed the aura of the two great ghost emperors. Just as he was halfway there, he saw immeasurable Taoist, Du Zhu, the evil Lord Saint, and the two great ghost emperors. Obviously, the two great ghost emperors had also sensed Lin Feng's aura. Therefore, they came together with immeasurable Taoist, Du Zhu, and the evil Lord Saint to find Lin Feng. I knew it. A scourge like you wouldn't die so easily. After seeing Lin Feng, immeasurable Taoist laughed. Lin Feng said, Eternal Heaven Monarch is a powerful figure. I was lucky to get rid of him. Taoist Wu Liang said, You're too modest. Who doesn't know that you're powerful? Moreover, your speed is unparalleled in this world. Eternal Heaven Monarch is indeed powerful. However, when it comes to speed, I'm afraid there's still a big gap between you and him. Immeasurable Taoist had known Lin Feng for a long time and had interacted with him a lot. Therefore, he knew Lin Feng very well. Furthermore, he knew Lin Feng's many techniques very well. Du Zhu said, Before young master arrived, we went to investigate the White Bone Hall in advance. We really did manage to find some rumors about the White Bone Hall. Oh, you found out about the White Bone Hall? Hurry up and tell me. Lin Feng's face lit up with joy. Du Zhu said, the westernmost part of the White Bone region is an incomparably huge inland sea. That inland sea is connected to the 8 great domains. It is said that the inland sea is dozens of times bigger than the 9 continents plain. There are countless dangers in the inland sea, but there are also countless opportunities. According to rumors, every few years, the region near the White Bone region will be filled with white fog. Within the fog, a White Bone Hall will appear. The White Bone Hall is filled with energy, making it impossible to get close to it. Any cultivator who gets close to the White Bone Hall will eventually die. If that's the case, won't we have to wait for the White Bone Hall to appear before we have a chance to find it? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. He didn't know when the White Bone Hall would appear. The poison ancestor said, according to the other party, there is a pattern to the appearance of the Hall of Bones. It is said that it will appear once every 8,000 years. Now that the cycle of 8,000 years has passed, the other party predicted that the Hall of Bones will appear in the next few months. Oh, is there such a coincidence? Lin Feng couldn't help but smile when he heard that. If they only had to wait for a few months, that wouldn't be a problem. Du Zhu chuckled. It is indeed a coincidence. We can wait in White Bone City for a while. Lin Feng said, all right, then we'll wait in White Bone City for a while. When the White Bone Hall appears, we'll enter the ocean to search for it. Lin Feng followed Taoist Wu Liang, Du Zhu, and the others to their lodgings. They rented a courtyard in an inn. It was very quiet. It was very suitable for living. When Lin Feng arrived at White Bone City, the Heavenly Court, the Crown Prince's palace, Di Wudao came out of seclusion. He had now fully grasped the strength of a true immortal. Lin Feng, has he been killed? Di Wudao asked as he looked at the mirror of future. Clearly, Lin Feng had become a thorn in Di Wudao's side. He had never forgotten about killing Lin Feng. Chapter 4799. The Mirror of Future said, as of now, we haven't received any news about Lin Feng. Hearing that, Di Wudao's face suddenly sank. What was the difference between not receiving any news about Lin Feng and Lin Feng being safe and sound? Trash. All of you are trash. How long has it been? You can't even kill Lin Feng. The Baji Palace is trash. The people from that assassin dynasty are trash too. Di Wudao's face was very ugly. He wanted to hear the news that Lin Feng had been killed after coming out of seclusion. To Di Wudao, there was no news that could make him happier than this. However, he didn't hear any news about Lin Feng being killed. Watching Lin Feng grow step by step, Di Wudao was naturally infuriated. Other than anger, deep in his heart, and fear. Although Di Wudao had never seen Lin Feng in person, he knew Lin Feng's father too well. As Lin Baiyan's son, one could imagine how powerful Lin Feng's talent was. It took others 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years, or even 10 million years to cultivate to this level. Lin Feng might only need 100 years to succeed. Therefore, Di Wudao wanted to kill Lin Feng as soon as possible. He wanted to let Lin Feng grow. There would be more problems if he delayed. If he waited until Lin Feng completely grew, he might not be able to kill Lin Feng. At that time, Lin Feng would definitely become a huge problem. The princes have been out for a long time. Perhaps they will succeed soon? The Mirror of Future said, my brothers? Di Wudao sneered. He narrowed his eyes and said, those people are short-sighted. They only have the throne in their eyes. They envy me, they are jealous of me, and they even want to get rid of me and replace me. After they know Lin Feng's identity, do you think they will attack Lin Feng? The Mirror of Future couldn't help but frown. Di Wudao was right. How could those people attack Lin Feng? At the very least, not now. Even if they wanted to deal with Lin Feng, they would probably wait until Di Wudao was killed before they would make a move against Lin Feng. The Mirror of Future said, Lin Feng has many tricks up his sleeve. Killing him is indeed not easy. Di Wudao's expression darkened. Looks like this kid is more difficult to deal with than I thought. Previously, in order to break through to the true immortal realm, I was in seclusion and couldn't free myself to deal with him. Now that I've broken through to the true immortal realm, I've changed from immortal to an immortal. Since I'm free, I'll personally deal with him. If His Highness the Crown Prince makes a move, Lin Feng will definitely die. The Mirror of Future said hurriedly. Pausing for a moment, the Mirror of Future asked, "Do we still need to inform the 8 Extreme Palace and Killer Dynasty?" Di Wudao said, "There's no need. If they had the ability to kill Lin Feng, I wouldn't have had to do it myself." As soon as he finished speaking, Di Wudao and the Mirror of Future disappeared without a trace from the Crown Prince Palace. Lin Feng naturally had no idea that Di Wudao had come out to deal with him. On the second day of his arrival in Whitebone City, someone came to deliver a letter to Lin Feng. Lin Feng opened the letter and saw that it was an invitation. The other party did not state who they were. Instead, he asked the person who delivered the letter. The person who delivered the letter said that his master's name was Mu Qinyu. He wanted to invite Lin Feng for a meeting. Lin Feng did not expect this. He had just arrived in Whitebone City. Someone had actually recognized him. Moreover, they had invited him to meet them. Lin Feng did not know who this Mu Qinyu was. This was the first time he had heard of this name. However, since the other party had invited him, Lin Feng decided to meet this Mu Qinyu. Everything would become clear when he arrived at Mu Qinyu's place. The next day, Lin Feng went to attend a banquet. As the other party had only invited him, Lin Feng attended the banquet alone. The other party had sent a beast carriage. After Lin Feng boarded the beast carriage, he closed his eyes and rested his mind. "Lin Gongzi, we have arrived." A voice came from outside. Lin Feng opened his eyes and walked down from the beast carriage. When he arrived outside, he found himself in a huge mansion. Not far away, there were several beautiful maidservants. The maidservants walked towards Lin Feng and bowed to Lin Feng. The leader of the maidservants said, "This servant greets Lin Gongzi. My master is already waiting for you. Lin Gongzi, please follow this servant." "All right." Lin Feng nodded. The maidservants led the way. Lin Feng discovered that these maidservants were not only beautiful, but their figures were also extremely alluring. When they walked in front of him, they swayed gracefully. It was truly a sight to behold. Lin Feng could not help but feel apprehensive. They were just leading the way. They could have just sent one of them. Why would they send such beautiful maidservants? Could it be that they wanted to use these beautiful maidservants to seduce him? Lin Feng felt that there was such a possibility. There was an old saying, "Heroes have a weakness for beauties." Who didn't like beautiful women? Moreover, he was so young. At the age where he was full of vigor, he was at the age where he liked beautiful women the most. So the other party used such a move? They were looking down on him too much. Even though he liked beautiful women, but he did not lack women. Of course, even though he had some guesses in his heart, Lin Feng did not make any noise. He followed behind the group of maidservants and came to a living room. When he arrived, there was already a female cultivator sitting in the living room. She was a young woman around 30 years old. She was wearing a blue and purple dress, which wrapped around her graceful and voluptuous body. Aside from her excellent figure, this woman's face was also extremely beautiful. This was a kind of seductive beauty. That peerlessly beautiful face gave people the feeling of a vixen. Her every move, it could make people addicted. She was naturally charming. It turned out to be a woman with such a physique. After seeing Lin Feng come in, the woman stood up. Then she bowed to Lin Feng. She said with a charming smile, "This servant is Mu Qinyu. I pay my respects to Lin Gongzi." "Fairy, you don't have to be so polite," Lin Feng said. But Mu Qinyu did not get up. Instead, she stretched out her hand. It seemed that she wanted Lin Feng to help her up. Lin Feng could not help but feel apprehensive. What did this woman want to do? First, she sent a few beautiful maidservants to welcome him. Now she wanted him to help her up. Although Lin Feng felt apprehensive, he did not show it on his face. He wanted to see what this woman wanted to do. Lin Feng walked up, grabbed Mu Qinyu's hand, and helped her up. Who would have thought? Chapter 4800. There was a saying, "I'm not a casual person, but when I'm casual, I'm not human." However, this sentence was not suitable for the current situation, nor was it suitable for Lin Feng. This woman in front of him was obviously up to something. Lin Feng did not want to have any physical contact with her. So when this woman fell into Lin Feng's arms, Lin Feng took a step back. He put some distance between him and the woman. This woman was pretending to faint, so Lin Feng took a step back. Naturally, she stood steadily. Lin Gongzi, you're so bad. The woman looked at Lin Feng with resentful eyes. This woman knew how to act coquettishly. Her voice was delicate, and there was a kind of charming power that fused into her voice. However, Lin Feng's face was clear as he said, I'm sorry, I didn't notice that Fairy almost fainted. If I did, I would definitely have supported Fairy. Fortunately, Fairy is fine, otherwise, I would definitely feel extremely guilty. The maidservants not far away couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. Lin Feng was lying through his teeth, and his face wasn't red nor was he out of breath. His mental fortitude was really amazing. Mu Qian, you naturally wouldn't believe Lin Feng's words. However, she naturally wouldn't say this out loud. She said sweetly, so it was this servant who misunderstood Lin Gongzi. I'm really sorry. I'll definitely punish myself with 3 cups of wine later to apologize to Lin Gongzi. Mu Qian continued, Lin Gongzi, let's not stand and talk. Please sit down and talk. Lin Feng nodded and sat behind the table on the left. Then, several beautiful maidservants came to Lin Feng's side. One of them knelt on the left, while the other knelt on the right. 2 people knelt behind him. The 2 people behind him stretched out their slender hands to massage Lin Feng. The maid on the left smiled and said, Lin Gongzi, this servant will serve you from the side. If you have any orders, Lin Gongzi, please don't hesitate. This beautiful maidservant had clearly cultivated the art of seduction. As she spoke, her eyes flickered with a charming look. Her eyes were like limpid autumn waters. She was fixedly staring into Lin Feng's eyes. When she spoke, her breath smelled like orchids, and a fragrance filled the air. The woman on the right also said sweetly, Lin Gongzi, if you want to drink wine, this servant will pour it for you. If you want to eat vegetables, this servant will pick them up for you. It was Lin Feng's first time receiving such treatment. Was he trying to corrupt his heart? Lin Feng said, for fairies, I can do it myself. You don't have to be so polite. Go and rest. The 4 beautiful maidservants looked at Mu Qianyu. Mu Qianyu smiled and said, just let the 4 of them serve young master. If young master likes them, you can take them with you when you leave. At that time, you'll have a few close friends by your side. We cultivators can't mistreat our bodies when we're outside. Lin Feng smiled and said, thank you for your kindness, but as the saying goes, one should not accept a reward without any effort. Therefore, I dare not accept these fairies. Please let them go and rest. When Mu Qianyu saw that Lin Feng had already made up his mind, she couldn't help but whisper to herself. Today, she had chosen a few maids. All of them were extremely beautiful and had practiced seduction techniques. Each and every one of them was extremely attractive to men. Why did Lin Feng turn a blind eye to them? Could it be that Lin Feng had already reached a state where his heart was as still as water? Mu Qianyu waved her hand. When the 4 maidservants saw Mu Qianyu's gesture, they all left, leaving only Lin Feng and Mu Qianyu in the hall. Mu Qianyu raised her wine cup and said, Lin Gongzi, these first 3 cups of wine are my apology to you. After I drink them, please don't blame me in your heart. Mu Qianyu's voice became even more coquettish. Her charming appearance was truly capable of stirring the hearts of others. Lin Feng said, even if you don't drink these 3 cups of wine, I won't blame you. That won't do. If I don't drink them, I don't know the rules. Mu Qianyu said with a smile. Then, she drained the cup of wine in one gulp. She then poured 2 more cups of wine. Those 2 cups of wine, Mu Qianyu also drained them in one gulp. Lin Feng smiled and said, I still don't know why you called me here. Mu Qianyu looked at Lin Feng with an aggrieved gaze. Those who didn't know what was going on would most likely think that Lin Feng had abandoned Mu Qianyu, which was why Mu Qianyu looked at him with such an aggrieved gaze. One had to admit that Mu Qianyu was truly a formidable woman, as expected of a seductive vixen. However, these methods were clearly useless against Lin Feng. Lin Feng had seen too many beautiful women in his life. Now, he was already immune to beautiful women. No matter how beautiful they were, he could control them as he wished. Mu Qianyu said, Can I invite you here for no reason? I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. Now that you've come to Whitebone City, I'm overjoyed. I naturally hope to meet you. Lin Feng didn't believe a single word of Mu Qianyu's words. She clearly had a reason for looking for him. Lin Feng didn't expose her. Instead, he smiled and said, I didn't expect my charm to be so great. You've admired me for so long. However, I still have some important matters to attend to today. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. In a few days, I'll hold a banquet and invite you as an apology. Lin Feng was about to stand up. Mu Qianyu frowned when she saw that Lin Feng was about to leave. At that moment, a laugh suddenly rang out. Brother Lin, why are you in such a hurry? You were delayed by something earlier. Fortunately, you finished your business in time. A young man walked out from the inner hall. This young man was dressed in brocade clothes. His face was as clear as jade, and he was extremely handsome. Lin Feng didn't recognize this person. However, since this person walked out, it was obvious that this person was Mu Qianyu's backer. However, Lin Feng naturally didn't believe this person's words. From the looks of it, Mu Qianyu was only sent out to test him. The young master who had just walked out was the backbone of the group. If he didn't see that Lin Feng was about to leave, he probably wouldn't have walked out. Lin Feng asked, How should I address you? I'm Mu Tianhao. I'm the son of Whitebone City's city lord. The young man introduced himself. This surprised Lin Feng. Of course, Lin Feng had seen a lot of things, so even though he was a little surprised, he was just a little surprised, that's all. He was bold because of his skills. He was fearless in the face of everything. Chapter 4801. This time, I invited Brother Lin because I've heard of Brother Lin's great name and would like to befriend Brother Lin. Mu Tianhao smiled and said, Oh, is that so? Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and said. Mu Tianhao said, Of course. After a pause, Mu Tianhao continued, Other than befriending Brother Lin, I would also like to invite Brother Lin to attend the garden party the day after tomorrow. Garden party? Lin Feng could not help but reveal a puzzled expression. Mu Tianhao said, This garden party is organized by the Confucian expert, Teacher Zhu. Confucian experts were rare. Furthermore, the development of the Confucian path had not been good these past few years. As such, Confucian experts were even rarer. Lin Feng was not familiar with the Confucian path. However, Lin Feng had an old friend, Ning Shuhai, who was a Confucian expert. Ning Shuhai was originally a reader of the secular world. However, he was not obsessed with fame and fortune, so when he was 70 or 80 years old, he was only an elementary scholar. His family's nephew and niece-in-law had taken over his property and chased him out. Lin Feng had witnessed all of this and had helped him. Later on, elementary scholar Ning had studied for 80 years and had cultivated a body of righteous qi. Then, elementary scholar Ning had successfully passed the tribulation. From an ordinary person, he had become a peerless expert of the sky martial continent. Many years passed. Lin Feng had never seen elementary scholar Ning again. Now that he thought about it, although life was long, the world was vast. If he missed this opportunity, he might not be able to meet him again in his lifetime. Seeing that Lin Feng was in a daze, it was obvious that he was thinking about something. Mu Tianhao did not disturb Lin Feng's thoughts. This person knew how to read people's expressions. Lin Feng regained his senses and said, Thank you for the invitation, Brother Mu, but I wonder if you will be bringing a few friends along? Mu Tianhao smiled, Of course not. Is there anything I need to take note of at the garden party? Lin Feng asked. Mu Tianhao said, There isn't anything special, but the garden party is rather interesting. Every few years, when Teacher Zhu returns home to visit his family, he will hold a party like this. During the party, he will give out couplets for everyone to compose a poem. If you perform well, you will be approached by Teacher Zhu alone. Teacher Zhu is not a simple person, and he is an almighty being from the ancient times. He is one of the leaders of the Confucian sect. Many people have benefited from him, and their cultivations have improved. In particular, you can ask Teacher Zhu about your cultivation problems. I heard that Teacher Zhu has cultivated the Heart Inquisition Immortal Scripture, which is very powerful. It questions one's heart and points to the Great Tao. Teacher Zhu can find the source of any Tao, such as the Great Destiny technique of the 3,000 Great Taos. The number of people who have cultivated the Great Destiny technique can be counted on one's fingers, but Teacher Zhu is one of the few who has cultivated the Great Destiny technique. This time, Teacher Zhu's garden party has attracted many young geniuses. Among them, there is no lack of top-notch geniuses and fairies. They are all here to compete for first place and then ask Teacher Zhu some questions about cultivation. In addition, Teacher Zhu also has rewards. I heard that this time, Teacher Zhu will reward a scroll of the Phoenix Sky painting. The real Phoenix Sky painting is an ancient weapon-level treasure. The Phoenix Sky painting that Teacher Zhu rewarded is a powerful forbidden weapon. Even if it is only a forbidden weapon, it is unimaginably terrifying. If used at a critical moment, it can kill enemies and save lives. After listening to Mu Tianhao's explanation, Lin Feng could not help but look forward to this garden party. Lin Feng also wanted to see the strong cultivator of Confucianism from the ancient times. This was a powerful existence. Over the long years, what had he not seen? A Confucian expert who could live until now was indeed incomparably terrifying and worthy of everyone's respect. Moreover, this Teacher Zhu's strength was probably also incomparably terrifying. However, it was hard to say what his exact strength was, but Lin Feng guessed that the other party was most likely a peak true immortal. It was very likely that he was at the same level as the Heavenly Emperor. Such an expert, even in the heavenly realm, would be a big shot. Lin Feng looked at Mu Tianhao, cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for telling me this, Brother Mu." Mu Tianhao laughed and said, "Brother Lin, you are welcome." After a pause, Mu Tianhao continued, "I know that Brother Lin is busy, so I dare not continue to ask Brother Lin to stay. The day after tomorrow, I will send people to pick up Brother Lin and your friends." "Good. Then I will take my leave first." Lin Feng cupped his fists and said. Mu Tianhao and Mu Qinyu sent Lin Feng out. "Third sister, what do you think of this person?" After returning to the hall, Mu Tianhao looked at Mu Qinyu and asked. Other than his strong self-control, he seems to be very ordinary. Of course, the reason why he has such strong self-control is probably because he doesn't like women, Mu Qinyu said. Mu Tianhao said, "Third sister, you don't know this, but from what I know, Lin Feng likes women a lot. However, when facing the maidservants that third sister has painstakingly nurtured, and even a beauty like third sister, he can still act like a gentleman. This shows just how terrifying this person is." Mu Qinyu frowned slightly, thinking about the meaning behind Mu Tianhao's words. Mu Tianhao's words did sound very reasonable, said Mu Tianhao. Besides, even though Lin Feng looks ordinary, it's the best way for him to hide his true strength. Extremely strong cultivators like to hide their true strength. This is because people like them are very powerful and confident, and they don't care about what others think. Mu Qinyu said, "He's too young. It's hard to imagine that he could have such achievements at such a young age." Mu Tianhao said, "He's Lin Baiyan's son. Just this point alone makes it natural for him to have any achievements." Tianhao is right. He's Lin Baiyan's son, so we can't look at him like a normal person. At that moment, a voice came from the back hall. Following that, 4 cultivators walked out. "Your Highness." Mu Tianhao and Mu Qinyu hurriedly bowed when they saw the 4 people walk out. The 4 cultivators who walked out from the back hall were none other than the 1st prince, 2nd prince, 4th prince, and 7th prince. In fact, whether it was Mu Qinyu or Mu Tianhao, they were the ones who had pushed them to the front. Everything that they hadn't done was to temporarily rope in Lin Feng so that they could deal with Di Wudao together. Di Wudao was the prince's biggest target. As for Lin Feng, Chapter 4802. Lin Feng didn't let the beast carriage sent by the Mu clan send him back. Instead, he walked back to his residence alone. How many people are there in the back hall? Who are they? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown as he pondered. Although the other party hid very well, they couldn't hide from Lin Feng. Lin Feng's perception was too powerful. Therefore, he sensed the presence of those people. Those cultivators were all very powerful. However, their identities were a mystery. Lin Feng then shook his head. There was no need for him to worry about who those people were. No matter who they were, he just needed to do his job well. He would deal with whatever came his way. He had to be strong. Only then could he deal with all kinds of situations. Lin Feng saw a few cultivators on the way. They were the son of the East Emperor, the blood-haired woman, the decaying corpse, and Huang Fu Qingtian. Of course, the blood-haired woman now looked like a normal person with her blood-colored hair tied up behind her head. She had also become much prettier. As for the decaying corpse, he had turned into a middle-aged man. Although Huang Fu Qingtian had lost an arm, he still looked good. His strength was still very powerful. Lin Feng was still waiting to kill Huang Fu Qingtian and snatch his Pangu arcane dimension. He didn't know why the four of them were here. He wondered if the moon goddess was here too. Lin Feng didn't show up. He avoided them because he didn't want to have a conflict with them yet. Lin Feng didn't stay outside for too long. He returned to his residence and told Taoist Wu Liang and the others about the garden party. Hehe, this garden party is rather interesting. This Taoist grandpa is very knowledgeable and talented. Those scholars of the Confucian faction will not be able to compare with me. Hearing that, everyone couldn't help but roll their eyes. This damn Taoist was probably bragging again. On the appointed day, the Mu clan sent another beast carriage. Lin Feng, Taoist Wu Liang, Du Zhu, evil sovereign sage, and the two ghost emperors boarded the beast carriage and headed towards the Mu clan. After arriving at the Mu clan, Lin Feng introduced both parties, following which, the group headed out of the city. The garden party was not held in White Bone City. It was the Plum Mountain to the west of White Bone City. Plum Mountain was 50 miles away from White Bone City. It wasn't too far away. The plum blossoms here were in full bloom, and it was very beautiful. This Master Zhu built a mansion in Maishan. If he were to go home to visit his family, they would often live in the Plum Mountains. On the way, Lin Feng and the Mu clan siblings talked about Mr. Zhu. Lin Feng learned a lot of information from the Mu siblings. For example, in the past, Master Zhu was actually a cultivator of the mortal world. Moreover, she was a top scorer. He only retired when he was 90 years old. For the next few years, he devoted himself to his studies. Later on, he wrote books such as Commentary on the Four Book Chapters, Explanation of the Taiji Diagram, Commentary on the Book of Books, Book of Changes, and Commentary on the Songs of Chu. These were all classics of the Confucian sect. In many secular countries, they were treated as sacred texts. Moreover, it was rumored that Master Zhu's Tao and inheritance. It was integrated into these books that he had written. If someone could read these books of his, they could comprehend Master Zhu's Tao and inheritance from them. Of course, this was only a rumor after all. Whether it was true or not was unknown. This was because there were fewer people studying now. Therefore, asking other cultivators to study Master Zhu's books was a very difficult task. Therefore, only the Confucian sect cultivators would study the books written by Master Zhu. However, there were very few people in the Confucian sect, and they were relatively low-key. Therefore, whether those Confucian sect cultivators had obtained Master Zhu's Tao and inheritance from the books written by Master Zhu, only they themselves knew. Master Zhu's situation was similar to Scholar Ning's. He had never cultivated, but because of his books, he had cultivated a righteous aura. Master Zhu transcended the tribulation at the age of 99. 99. This was a number that caused countless people to be fearful. This number, it represented great misfortune. However, Master Zhu had never feared this unknown number. In Master Zhu's own words, he had done the right thing. Naturally, he was fearless. Later on, Master Zhu brought his family to live in the undying realm. Countless years had passed. A portion of Master Zhu's family was in the Confucian sect. A portion of his family stayed in White Bone City. In the beginning, Master Zhu cultivated in Mount Mei outside White Bone City. Thus, countless years had passed. Master Zhu still maintained the habit of coming to Mount Mei to stay for a period of time every few years. It could be said that Master Zhu's life was filled with many mysterious colors. He was an extraordinary person. He could be said to be a legend. On the way, they saw some cultivators rushing in the direction of Mount Mei. Most of them were young elites and fairies. Not long after, Lin Feng and the others arrived at Mount Mei. From afar, they could see the plum blossoms that covered the mountain, emitting a faint fragrance. It was winter now. Hundreds of flowers withered. Only the plum blossoms stood out. Admiring the plum blossoms in winter was indeed a kind of artistic conception. Of course, This kind of artistic conception was for the Confucian sect or scholars, for cultivators like Lin Feng and the others. However, there wasn't much attraction to it. After all, they did not have the leisure to admire the plum blossoms like the Confucian sect cultivators. Mount May had not yet opened, so after arriving here, everyone waited at the foot of Mount May. After Lin Feng and the others arrived, many people greeted the Mu siblings. After all, they were the children of the city lord and had quite a bit of prestige in Whitebone City. He was a local tyrant type of character. As the saying goes, a strong dragon could not suppress a local snake. Therefore, naturally, the Mu siblings were people that many people wanted to make friends with. As for Lin Feng and the others beside the Mu siblings, they were ignored by everyone. Not everyone knew Lin Feng. More and more cultivators arrived, including some top geniuses. A commotion could be heard in the distance. Young Master Mingyu, Young Master Xingyu, and Young Master Shuiyu had arrived. They were all figures among the 8 great young masters. Wherever they went, they were like stars surrounding the moon. In addition, some fairies also arrived one after another. For example, Mu Xia, Nangong Muley, Hualing Xian, and the other top 10 fairies also arrived one after another. After they arrived, many people came forward to greet them. Everyone knew that these top geniuses would definitely become one of the most powerful figures in the future. Therefore, naturally, they had to befriend them when they were young. If they could build a relationship with them, it would be very beneficial for the future. Some of the young geniuses and fairies responded to the surrounding cultivators with smiles on their faces. But there were also some who looked indifferent and cold, not paying much attention to the surrounding cultivators. But even so, Chapter 4803. With so many people gathered together, it was inevitable that they would talk about a lot of things. Many people could not avoid the name Lin Feng, especially. Some time ago, there was news that one of the 10 great fairies of the Undying Realm, Murong Yuxuan, had been suppressed by Lin Feng. This matter caused quite a stir. Murong Yuxuan was the successor of the Divine King Valley. Her cultivation base was extremely high, and she had long been able to compete with many of the older generation experts. Moreover, she was in charge of the chart of the Divine King. Logically speaking, it should be impossible to suppress her. However, the cultivator who spread the news gave a very detailed account of the whole thing. Many people knew that Murong Yuxuan came to the White Bone region to celebrate the birthday of the Golden Bone Sage. Thus, everyone went to the Golden Bone Sage's birthday banquet to confirm this matter. Everyone really found out. Murong Yuxuan's birthday banquet was the future Golden Bone Sage's birthday banquet. As a good friend of Murong Yuxuan's master, how could the Golden Bone Sage not come to such an important occasion if nothing happened? So, after the news spread out, many cultivators believed it. Murong Yuxuan. She was really captured by Lin Feng. Then, the grudge between Lin Feng and Murong Yuxuan was also exposed, including when young Master Xian Song wanted to kill people and steal their treasures, but many of his subordinates were killed by Lin Feng and the others. Then, when Murong Yuxuan appeared and saved young Master Xian Song from Lin Feng and the others, the entire process was exposed. This was also the reason why Lin Feng and Murong Yuxuan had a grudge. This matter naturally caused a heated discussion among countless cultivators. Because, for such a delicate beauty like Murong Yuxuan to fall into Lin Feng's hands, one could imagine what would happen to her. Moreover, rumor had it that Murong Yuxuan had a heavenly spirit body, a special physique that could fuse with heaven and earth. This kind of physique was one of the best dual cultivation physiques. Moreover, Murong Yuxuan's primordial yin was still there. Thus, after thinking of this, naturally, there were a lot of rumors and slanders. It was said that after this matter spread out, the Divine King Valley was furious and was investigating Lin Feng's whereabouts. Other than the Divine King Valley, the Floating Cloud Palace was also furious. The Floating Cloud Palace was a colossal force. The Pearl of the Floating Cloud Palace was now the second wife of the Celestial Emperor. If the fiancé of young Master Qing Tsong of the Floating Cloud Palace was kidnapped and something unspeakable happened between her and that person, the Floating Cloud Palace's young Master Qing Tsong, at that time, it would be a huge blow to Floating Cloud Palace's reputation. This was a huge blow to young Master Qingcong. Therefore, young Master Qingcong came out of seclusion and threatened Lin Feng if he dared to touch Morong Yuxuan. At that time, he would definitely tear Lin Feng to shreds. Actually, Lin Feng still didn't know about young Master Qingcong's threat. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. So what if he was one of the 8 great young masters of the Undying Realm? This young master doesn't care about you either. What can you do to me? I heard that young Master Qingcong is searching for Lin Feng's whereabouts everywhere, and even went to Sin Domain to look for Lin Feng, but he was unable to find Lin Feng. I wonder where this Lin Feng ran off to. Some time ago, I heard that he ran to the Weakwater region. As for where he is now, I don't know. Morong Yuxuan has been in Lin Feng's hands for so long. Who knows, she might have already been plucked by Lin Feng. That's not necessarily the case. I heard that the chart of the God King that Morong Yuxuan has is a heaven-defying treasure. The chart of the God King has formed an independent space. Although Morong Yuxuan was suppressed by Lin Feng, she can temporarily hide in the chart of the God King. If Lin Feng wants to break the seal of the chart of the God King and capture Morong Yuxuan, it's not something that can be done in a short period of time. Therefore, I guess that Morong Yuxuan should be fine now, but if time passes, then it's hard to say. This Lin Feng is really a character. After he came to the Undying World alone, he actually stirred up a storm in the Undying World in such a short period of time. Now, even the Sky Emperor doesn't dare to casually send an army to attack the Sin Domain. This time, he has completely become a force to be reckoned with. Yes, after all, he is the son of Lin Feng. It's not surprising that he can achieve such extraordinary achievements. But now, many forces regard Lin Feng as a thorn in their side. If they have the opportunity to kill him, they will definitely kill him immediately. After all, he is the descendant of the sinner's bloodline. Many races have joined forces to suppress the sinner's bloodline. They don't want the sinner's bloodline to rise again. Besides these reasons, there's actually another reason for wanting to kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng's luck is monstrous. He possesses many long-lost mystiques, immortal scriptures, and supreme treasures. Killing Lin Feng is no different from obtaining several heaven-defying fortuitous encounters. Therefore, many people want to kill Lin Feng. Many people were discussing Lin Feng. Of course, there were also many people discussing other things. Suddenly, everyone saw. Young Master Yuxue looked in a certain direction. His expression instantly became incomparably cold. His eyes flashed with dense killing intent. As one of the 8 great young masters of the Undying World, young Master Yuxue's every action naturally attracted attention. Therefore, when everyone saw the change in his expression, they were puzzled. They didn't know what was going on. At this time, young Master Yuxue moved and walked in a certain direction. Is young Master Yuxue targeting Mu Tianhao? That doesn't make sense. There shouldn't be any grudges between them, right? When everyone saw young Master Yuxue walking in Mu Tianhao's direction, some cultivators immediately voiced their doubts. Young Master Yushue's killing intent was very strong. Therefore, no one knew how Mu Tianhao had offended young Master Yuxue to make him want to kill him. I didn't expect you to be here. Have you thought about how you want to die? Young Master Yuxue wasn't targeting Mu Tianhao. Instead, he was targeting Lin Feng. He looked coldly at Lin Feng, his eyes flashing with dense killing intent. Previously, one of his stone golems had been killed by Lin Feng. This grudge, young Master Yuxue had always kept it in his heart. Now that he saw Lin Feng, he was filled with killing intent. Naturally, he was filled with killing intent. Young Master Yuxue, leave this brat to me. I'll kill him. Young Master Ming Yu no longer hid his killing intent for Lin Feng and walked over. He was a top genius of the 8-level palace, and the 8-level palace had been searching for Lin Feng. I think you should leave him to me. Young Master Xing Yu walked over. He had been pursuing Nangong Muley, and he had seen her show interest in Lin Feng. Because of that, he hated Lin Feng. He wanted to get rid of Lin Feng, a potential competitor. Seeing that 3 of the 8 young masters of the Undying World were targeting Lin Feng, everyone was puzzled. They didn't know who Lin Feng was. Who is he? Why do the 3 young masters want to kill him? Someone asked in confusion. He's Lin Feng. Someone recognized Lin Feng and revealed Lin Feng's identity. What? He's the Sinner's Blood Emperor, Lin Feng? Chapter 4804. Previously, they were still discussing Lin Feng, but now, Lin Feng was right beside them. It was really unexpected. Everyone's face was filled with astonishment, and here I was wondering who it was. So it's the famous Undying Realm's three great trash young masters. Are you in such a hurry to die? You can attack together. This young master can kill you all in a matter of minutes. Lin Feng glanced at the three young masters indifferently. Now that Lin Feng had broken through to the loose immortal realm, his strength had increased greatly. Moreover, Lin Feng had two evil god statues. Would Lin Feng be afraid of them? Even if he didn't use the daimon statue, Lin Feng was confident that he could compete with the three high officials of the undead world. Undying Realm's three great trash young masters? Many people's mouths twitched when they heard Lin Feng call Prince Shuiyu, Prince Mingyu, and Prince Xingyu among the geniuses below 30,000 years of age. The Undying Realm's 8 great young masters were definitely the most outstanding figures. Each of them could challenge those of a higher realm. Their cultivation had already caught up to the older generation's experts. Now, they were even more unfathomable. But now, in front of Lin Feng, 3 of the 8 great young masters had become the Undying Realm's 3 great trash young masters. This was too humiliating. Ordinary cultivators would also be furious if they were called trash, let alone top young masters like young master Shuiyu, Mingyu, and Xingyu. The 3 young masters' faces were gloomy. They wished they could kill Lin Feng immediately. I've long heard that Lin Feng is arrogant. Now that I've seen it, it's true. How did he survive until now? There's a saying that goes, if you don't offend me, I won't offend you. Young master Shuiyu, Mingyu, and Xingyu weren't offending Lin Feng. I thought he was just an ordinary cultivator. That's why I thought that Lin Feng usually kept a low profile, but when facing his enemies, he was extremely arrogant. That kind of person is the scariest. Now that you mention it, it does make sense. It's not unreasonable for Lin Feng to rise in such a short time. He reminds me of his father, Lin Beitian. I've met Lin Beitian in the past. He's so powerful that even the celestial emperors didn't dare to act. If it weren't for the people from that world and Lin Beitian being ambushed, how could anyone deal with Lin Beitian? Lin Feng is Lin Beitian's son, so he must be terrifying. Even though he's much younger than Prince Shuiyu, Prince Mingyu, and Prince Shuiyu, it's hard to say who will win. That's right. If it's a battle of life and death, it's hard to say who will emerge victorious. The surrounding cultivators began whispering to each other. Lin Feng, you think too highly of yourself. Today, we'll teach you how to behave. I alone am enough to kill you 1,000 times over. Why do you need to join forces with others? Young Master Shuiyu's expression was indifferent as he walked towards Lin Feng. He wanted to attack Lin Feng. I also want to kill this kid and let him know how big the gap is between him and the 8 young masters of the Undying World. Prince Mingyu also moved forwards. He was a calm and collected person, but at that moment, he had the feeling that the time to kill Lin Feng was ripe. Moreover, he couldn't allow Lin Feng to continue growing. If he allowed Lin Feng to continue growing, it would be extremely difficult to kill Lin Feng. Therefore, young Master Ming wanted to use this opportunity to kill Lin Feng. Young Master Xingyu said, I've just cultivated a peerless divine ability. This kid is just right for me to practice on. Let me have him. The 3 of them wanted to kill Lin Feng. Moreover, they all looked down on Lin Feng. Killing Lin Feng seemed to be an easy task for them. They didn't place Lin Feng in their eyes at all. The surrounding cultivators could naturally see the contempt the 3 of them had for Lin Feng. Clearly, if this battle were to really break out, then it would definitely be a battle of tit for tat. 3 idiots. I've already told you to come together, but you've been grumbling for half a day. I said you're trash, but you don't admit it. Only trash like you like to show off when you don't have much ability. Lin Feng directly scolded young Master Shuiyu, young Master Mingyu, and young Master Xingyu. He was scolding these 3 grandsons. It was best to anger them to death. Many people looked at Lin Feng with dumbfounded expressions. At their level of strength, they naturally paid attention to what they said. There were very few people who scolded others like Lin Feng. As such, Lin Feng's unrestrained scolding of the 3 young masters had indeed shocked many people. However, Lin Feng scolded them very happily. "You're courting death." The three young masters' expressions darkened. They had originally wanted to kill Lin Feng alone because they were very confident in themselves and disdained to team up. However, after being humiliated by Lin Feng, the three young masters were furious. Therefore, they couldn't care less about anything else. They activated their divine abilities and were about to attack Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He wasn't afraid at all. Just as the two sides were about to fight, a voice suddenly rang out. "Everyone, this is Plum Mountain, the place where Teacher Zhu rests. What is the meaning of all of you making a ruckus here? Are you trying to disturb Teacher Zhu's cultivation?" As the voice fell, more than a dozen cultivators flew over. The one who spoke was a cultivator in the lead. This was a female cultivator wearing a long Confucian robe. She was very beautiful and had a temperament. She was dressed like a scholar and did not wear any makeup. However, it was still difficult to hide her beautiful face. Hearing his words, Lin Feng and the others stopped. Teacher Zhu was an almighty from the primordial era. Such an existence. Naturally, he was respected by the world. Who dared to disturb Teacher Zhu's cultivation? Seeing that Lin Feng and the other three had stopped attacking, the woman in the lead said, "My name is Yu, and my name is Chan. I'm Teacher Zhu's youngest disciple. This time, I'll lead everyone to tour the garden." "So it's Fairy Yu Chan, nice to meet you." Many people bowed to this female cultivator. Yu Chan smiled slightly and said, "Everyone, don't stand outside. Let's go in and tour the garden now." As soon as she finished speaking, Yu Chan turned around and led the way. He didn't know if it was an illusion. Lin Feng felt that this woman named Yu Chan seemed to have deliberately glanced at him when she turned around. This surprised Lin Feng a little. Could it be that his reputation was so extraordinary that he attracted Yu Chan's special attention? If that was the case, it would make sense. Chapter 4805. Of course, Lin Feng didn't know what she was thinking. He didn't try to guess what Fairy Yu Chan was thinking. Lin Feng, Taoist Wuliang, Du Zhu, and the others walked toward the Plum Mountain. Hualing Xian, Nangong Muley, Mu Xia, and the others came to Lin Feng's side and greeted Lin Feng. When other people greeted the 10 great fairies, they would at most smile in response. However, when the 10 great fairies met Lin Feng, they took the initiative to greet Lin Feng. Comparisons are odious. Comparisons are odious. Brother, there's nothing to be jealous of. Who told Lin Feng to be so strong? To put it bluntly, in this world, it's not only about looks, it's also about strength. If he wasn't strong enough, why would the 10 fairies take the initiative to greet him? In some people's eyes, the goddesses in countless people's hearts are probably just bed partners that they can easily get. Some people whispered to each other. Naturally, they were very envious and jealous. However, this was the world of cultivators. If one had strength, they could enjoy treatment that ordinary cultivators couldn't. "You fairies are still as beautiful as ever," Lin Feng said with a smile. Inadvertently, he flirted with the fairies. The surrounding people screamed hysterically in their hearts. "Fairies, please don't be deceived by this guy's flowery words." The fairies were peerless beauties among the 10 great fairies. Naturally, they had countless suitors. For example, the cultivators who came to the Plum Mountain now. Many people were their pursuers or admirers. Those people naturally couldn't bear to see their goddesses have any special relationship with Lin Feng. The fairies smiled and didn't say anything. They knew Lin Feng's personality quite well. They didn't respond to Lin Feng's words, so they let it go. If they responded to Lin Feng, who knew what kind of shocking words Lin Feng would say, they didn't want to be teased by Lin Feng in front of so many people. "I heard that you were in the weak water region. I didn't expect you to come to the white bone region. Did you come especially for today's party?" Nangong Muley asked curiously. Lin Feng said, "That's not it. I have other things to deal with in the white bone region. I just happened to run into the garden party, so I came here to have a look." Sui Han asked, "I heard that you suppressed Murong Yushuan. Is that true?" Lin Feng nodded and said, "It's true." Then, has Murong Yushuan been? Murong Yushuan's expression changed. Sui Han revealed a malicious expression. Sui Han's personality was carefree, and there was nothing she wouldn't dare to say. Although she didn't say everything, Everyone knew what Sui Han wanted to say. Lin Feng said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm a gentleman, a man who is unswervingly loyal to love." Sui Han curled her lips when she heard Lin Feng's words. She looked at him as if he were lying to a ghost. "She's such a good woman. You can't miss out on her," Sui Han said. Lin Feng muttered to himself. Did Sui Han take the wrong medicine today? Was this still the same Sui Han who used to scold him for being shameless? "Do you have some grudge with Morong Yushuan?" Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. He felt that this might be the reason. Or else, why was Sui Han encouraging him? "What grudge could I have with her?" Sui Han said. She refused to admit it. Hua Lingxian said, "I heard that the Divine King Valley, the Floating Cloud Palace, and even young Master Qingcong are looking for you. They even warned you not to touch Morong Yushuan." Lin Feng said, "Morong Yushuan is waiting in the chart of the Divine King. As of now, I have no way of entering the chart of the Divine King. However, even if I return Sui Han to the Divine King Valley, I will still ruthlessly extort them. However, I still need to think about this matter in the future." Hearing that, the others nodded. Everyone arrived at Plum Mountain. Plum Mountain was planted with various varieties of plum blossoms. Different varieties of plum blossoms had different colors. Lin Feng even saw a type of 7-colored plum blossoms. It was truly magnificent. Every plum blossom tree had a bamboo stick hanging on it. On those bamboo sticks, it was written with the words "match." Any cultivator who came here could try to match the couplets on the bamboo stick. At this time, Mu Yasi went to take a bamboo stick. She softly read out the first half of the couplet written on the bamboo stick. "The Green Mountain is not painted with ink." This was a 7-character absolute. The meaning of this couplet was that the Green Mountain Range was a painting of mountains and rivers that would not decay for 1,000 years. The concept of this couplet was extremely high. Comparing the lofty mountain range to a 1,000-year-old ink painting, the realm of this couplet was instantly raised. Everyone could not help but softly read out the first half of this couplet. They were thinking about the second half. Lin Feng kicked Immeasurable Taoist and said, "Aren't you known as the king of couplets? Let's see if you can think of a 1,000-year-old absolute." Immeasurable Taoist rolled his eyes and said, "This couplet is too simple. Is there a need for me to take action?" After bragging, Immeasurable Taoist felt that this bragging was a little too much. Thus, he hurriedly slipped away. Lin Feng did not pay attention to this damn Taoist. Mu Yasi said, "I have thought of a second half. Fairy, please say it so that we can evaluate it." Lin Feng said with a smile, "The first half of the couplet is the Green Mountain is not painted with ink. The second half of the couplet is the red cloud is not faded with the bamboo slips of 10,000 generations. The red cloud refers to the clouds in the sky and also to the heroes. Fate means to follow along. Therefore, the meaning of the second half of the couplet is, the heroes of the world will follow the flow of history and eventually become the characters in the bamboo slips that will be passed down. Sister Yasi is indeed a talented woman. What a good couplet." Hua Lingxian said with a smile. Mu Yasi smiled and said, "I've made a fool of myself just now. I wonder if everyone has thought of any couplets?" Lin Feng smiled and said, "I've thought of a couplet." "Oh? What couplet?" Everyone looked at Lin Feng curiously. Lin Feng said with a smile, "The first half of the couplet is the Green Mountain is not painted with ink. The second half of the couplet is the flowing water has no strings, the ancient zither." The meaning of Lin Feng's couplet when put together was that the verdant mountain range was a painting of mountains and rivers that had not decayed even after 1,000 years. The green and lustrous flowing water was a melodious guqin that had been playing for 10,000 years without any strings. Mu Yasi and the others carefully tasted it. Then, Mu Yasi, Hua Lingxian, Nangong Muley, Sui Han, and the others' eyes lit up. Lin Feng's couplet was simply an absolute. This surprised everyone. Lin Feng was so young, and it was not easy for his cultivation to be so strong. Moreover, Lin Feng was extremely good at formations. Now, it seemed that. Chapter 4806. Mu Yasi exclaimed, "Lin Gongzi's couplet is really absolute. Yasi admires you." In fact, Muyasi was a peerless fairy with great talent and learning. It was precisely because she was very talented that she knew how perfect Lin Feng's couplet was. This made Muyasi have a whole new level of respect for Lin Feng. Lin Feng said with a smile, "I only thought of this couplet in a flash of inspiration. If I were to try other couplets, it would definitely be difficult for me to come up with such a neat second half." Everyone naturally felt that Lin Feng was being modest. Therefore, after hearing Lin Feng's words, they could not help but smile. Everyone continued to walk inside. Muyasi and the other peerless beauties rarely had time to relax like this. Therefore, they were relatively happy today. From time to time, they would take down a bamboo stick and look at the couplet written on it. Then, they would try to match the second half of the couplet. When the surrounding cultivators saw Lin Feng talking and laughing with the peerless beauties, they were really envious and jealous. Those fairies were usually high and mighty existences. They did not have much interaction with male cultivators. Why were they so close to Lin Feng today? Those cultivators wanted to replace Lin Feng so badly, but all they could do was daydream. Not only were the ordinary cultivators envious of Lin Feng, but some top geniuses were also envious of Lin Feng. For example, young Master Xing Yu was like this. He had been pursuing Nangong Muley. However, Nangong Muley turned a blind eye to his pursuit. Now, after seeing Lin Feng, Nangong Muley was actually talking and laughing with Lin Feng. How could young Master Xing Yu not be jealous? If possible, young Master Xing Yu wanted to kill Lin Feng now. He wanted to vent the hatred in his heart. However, private fights were not allowed in Meishan. Therefore, young Master Xing Yu could only restrain his killing intent. Lin Feng naturally knew that many people were envious of him now. But so what? Lin Feng didn't care what other people thought about him. Lin Feng had always been a straightforward person. Now that he was accompanied by several peerless beauties, he was touring the garden. What kind of joyous thing was this? Perhaps one or a few of the peerless fairies around him would become his concubines in the future. It seemed like he had to work harder. At this moment, Sui Han took down a bamboo stick and looked at the couplet written on it. Then, he read out the couplet. The first line of the couplet was, "The cool breeze and the bright moon come and go." The first half of the couplet was not simple. Literally, the first half of the couplet meant that the wind blew and the moon rose and fell. All of these had their own laws. It contained the great Tao of heaven and earth. Therefore, it was naturally much more difficult to match them. Because when it came to the second half of the couplet, it was difficult to show such a profound artistic conception. These peerless fairies were also very talented fairies. However, this couplet was difficult for them. Muyasi looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Lin Gongzi, have you thought of the second half of the couplet?" Actually, after the first couplet, Lin Feng had been watching the graceful and peerless fairies match the couplet as if he was watching a show. He was just looking at these delicate beauties and smelling their alluring bodies. It was already a kind of enjoyment. Now, when he heard Muyasi ask if he had a second half of the couplet, Lin Feng thought for a moment and said, "The first half of the couplet is the wind and the moon come and go. Then the second half of the couplet is the flowing water and the mountain has no ancient and present." Lin Feng's couplet. The flowing water and the wind of the first half of the couplet. The mountain and the moon of the first half of the couplet, and the last ancient and present represented the great Tao of heaven and earth, the great Tao of time. It corresponded with the laws of nature written in the first half of the couplet. Therefore, the meaning of the second half of the couplet was that the wind blows and the moon rises and sets. These all had their own laws of nature. The water flows endlessly and the mountains grow. It had been like this since ancient times. After reading it carefully, one would be able to understand it. Lin Feng's second half of the couplet, whether it was the literal meaning or the artistic conception. It was a perfect couplet. The celestial maidens couldn't help but admire Lin Feng, especially Muyasi. Actually, Muyasi and Lin Feng had known each other for a long time. However, Muyasi and Lin Feng were not particularly close. Muyasi liked to delve into literary works like poetry and songs. Although she was not a Confucian cultivator, she liked to study some of the literature passed down from Confucianism. This could be considered a kind of interest. After all, in this world, it was good to have some hobbies and interests. Or else, life would be too boring. Muyasi rarely interacted with male cultivators, so she naturally had no interest in them. Even if they were among the 8 great young masters of the Undying Realm, Muyasi, too, looked disinterested. But now, Muyasi began to have some interest in Linfeng, because she realized the Linfeng in front of her seemed to be different from the Linfeng she knew in the past. The Linfeng she knew in the past was also very mysterious. Sometimes, he was even a little cynical. For example, when he was fooling around with junior sister Sui Han, he was a little cynical. Although he did not annoy Muyasi, he did not arouse too much interest in her. But now, it was different. Muyasi realized that Linfeng had some extraordinary insights when it came to literature. Muyasi could not help but admire him. Therefore, Muyasi wanted to know more about Linfeng. She wanted to see how many more abilities Linfeng had that they did not know about. The cool breeze and the bright moon come and go. The flowing water and the mountains are unprecedented. Sui Han repeatedly savored this couplet. The more she read, the more perfect it was. She looked at Linfeng and could not help but say, "Do you often study couplets? Otherwise, how could it be so perfect?" Linfeng smiled and said, "That's not the case. Actually, when I was young, I knew an old scholar. That old scholar was very good at reading, and it was very beneficial to his cultivation. Hence, I followed him and read for some time. After we parted ways, I would also read and relax in my free time. Although I don't necessarily read all the time, after more than 100 years, I have accumulated a lot of time." Muyasi said, "It's not easy to persist in the same thing for so many years. Lin Gongzi's comprehension is high to begin with. He is also very active in reading and can draw inferences about other things. Therefore, even though he is not a member of the Confucian sect, if Lin Gongzi were to go to the secular world and become the top scorer, he would definitely be able to pass the exam." Linfeng said, "Fairy, you're flattering me. How can I be the top scorer?" At this moment, there was a commotion in the pavilion in the distance. Many cultivators rushed towards that pavilion. Linfeng asked the evil supremacy saint to investigate and found out. One of Fairy Yuechan's disciple niece was competing with many cultivators in couplets. Many cultivators knew that if they could win against Fairy Yuechan's disciple niece, at that time, they might have a chance to meet Teacher Zhu. Chapter 4807. The cultivator who came up with the couplet in the pavilion was called Wu Tianyuan. This person was indeed very young. He looked about the same age as Linfeng. Linfeng's age was naturally considered very young in the cultivation world. However, Wu Tianyuan was a very talented person in the cultivation of Confucianism. Furthermore, he was proficient in couplets and poems and was highly regarded by Teacher Zhu. Although he was a disciple that skipped a generation. However, Teacher Zhu brought Wu Tianyuan along when he came out. It was obvious that he wanted to nurture Wu Tianyuan. When Linfeng and the others arrived at the pavilion, they heard Wu Tianyuan say the first half of the couplet. How could there be mountains and rivers in the sky? The first half of the couplet had a profound meaning and many people could not help but think about it. At this moment, a cultivator said, "Aren't there immortals in the mortal world?" After hearing this cultivator's couplet, someone immediately clapped and cheered. Wu Tianyuan continued, "There are mountains and rivers in the sky." Everyone continued to think. The cultivator who came up with the second half of the couplet could not help but frown slightly. However, he could not think of a good couplet. Muyasi smiled and said, "Let me give it a try. It's Fairy Muyasi." Fairy Muyasi is a famous talented woman. Seeing Muyasi speak, a cultivator immediately said. Then, everyone fell silent. They were all waiting for Muyasi to come up with the second half of the couplet. Muyasi said, "The first half of the couplet is there are mountains and rivers in the sky. The second half of the couplet is there is no writing without water." Good. What a good there are mountains and rivers in the sky. There is no writing without water. Mountains and rivers echo each other from afar. The painting and the writing complement each other. What a good couplet. What a good couplet. Fairy Muyasi is indeed a famous talented woman in the Undying Realm. Immediately, some cultivators exclaimed. Wu Tianyuan's expression did not change as he continued. "A man cannot stand without integrity." This couplet seemed simple, but it was actually a real couplet. It was extremely difficult, because this couplet talked about a person's integrity. However, everyone was different. Therefore, it was difficult for everyone to be honest. Especially in the cultivation world, it was filled with deception. There seemed to be very few people who were honest. Now that Wu Tianyuan came up with this couplet, it was easy to think of the second half of the couplet that reflected the integrity of a cultivator. However, if such a couplet was matched, would easily offend many people. After all, those dishonest cultivators, even if they really did something dishonest, they definitely didn't want to be mentioned or reflected on by others. Muyasi pondered for a moment before replying, "The day will come." Everyone was taken aback. Then, they couldn't help but exclaim. Muyasi was truly a woman with a pure heart. In his couplet, he avoided the topic of cultivators' integrity and instead wrote that there would be a day when the sun would rise. Neat and tidy, and magnanimous. One could not help but admire him. Wu Tianyuan slightly frowned and continued, "In the books, dragons and tigers don't roar, and little girls are laughable." Many people's expressions changed after hearing Wu Tianyuan's couplet. It was apparent that Wu Tianyuan was mocking Muyasi, saying that she was a joke. Many people couldn't help but mutter. It was just matching couplets. Could it be that after Muyasi matched two of Wu Tianyuan's couplets? Was he angry out of humiliation? Logically speaking, that didn't seem right. Muyasi could not help frowning when she heard his sarcastic couplet. Why is this guy targeting Muyasi? Lin Feng looked at Suihan and asked in a low voice. Suihan could not help but feel angry when she saw Wu Tianyuan mocking her senior sister. She said, "This Wu Tianyuan is from the Wu family in the firmament cloud territory. He has an elder brother called Wu Yunbin. This Wu Yunbin is also a talented genius. He is arrogant and once flirted with senior sister verbally. Senior sister taught him a lesson. This matter became a joke. This Wu Tianyuan was also present at that time. He probably wants to take revenge for his elder brother, so he wants to take advantage of this opportunity to humiliate senior sister. This person is really hateful." Lin Feng said, "This Wu Tianyuan is very talented, but he's a little unreasonable and has bad intentions." "Yes." Suihan nodded and said, "I just don't know how senior sister will retaliate against him. However, although his couplet is humiliating, it's really hard to think of a second half to this couplet." Suihan could not help but worry for Muyasi. "If you can't match it, then you can leave. Don't waste my time," Wu Tianyuan said indifferently. Although he was very young, he was very arrogant. Many people could not stand Wu Tianyuan's attitude. But at this moment, it was not good to say anything. Muyasi's pretty face was slightly ugly. At this moment, Lin Feng said with a smile, "Fairy, you've already matched two couplets. Why don't you let me try this one?" Muyasi looked at Lin Feng. She knew that Lin Feng was helping her out. She could not help but feel grateful to Lin Feng. She nodded and retreated. Lin Feng said, "Your first half is in the book. The dragon does not roar. The tiger does not roar. The little girl is laughable. My second half is in the chessboard. The chariot has no wheels and the horse has no reins. The self-proclaimed gentleman, beware." After hearing Lin Feng's second half, many people immediately laughed out loud. Lin Feng's second half was mocking Wu Tianyuan for calling himself a gentleman, telling everyone to be wary of such a person. Wu Tianyuan's face suddenly darkened. He sneered and said, "There are a total of 3 masters in one village. They don't know the 4 books, 5 classics, and 6 meanings." Lin Feng said, 9 out of 10 families are poor. They only have 8 tails, 7 qian, 6 fawn, and 4 centimeters. They are still half-hearted and despicable. Haha, good match. Everyone could not help but clap and cheer. Wu Tianyuan wanted to humiliate Lin Feng. He said that Lin Feng did not know the 4 books and 5 classics and dared to show off his literary talent here. However, Lin Feng mocked that although Wu Tianyuan was a scholar, he was a disgrace to the refined. Muyasi's beautiful face revealed a smile. She naturally knew that Lin Feng was standing up for her. Otherwise, there was no need to offend Wu Tianyuan. After all, Wu Tianyuan was teacher Zhu's grand disciple. Even if he did not care about Wu Tianyuan, he still had to care about teacher Zhu's reputation, right? However, Lin Feng still did it. What did this mean? Could it be that Lin Gongzi has feelings for me in his heart? Mu Yasi could not help but have a thought in her mind. When this thought appeared in her mind, her pretty face turned slightly red. Suihan shouted excitedly, "Good match! Let's kill this disgrace to the refined." Wu Tianyuan's expression darkened even more. He continued with a new couplet. Oriole, swallow, green, green, red, red, everywhere harmonious and harmonious. Lin Feng said, "Yu feng 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 hua hua yi yer mu mu zhao zhao zhao." You. Wu Tianyuan pointed at Lin Feng. His face was extremely pale. He had matched couplets with others. He had never lost. However, he was now completely suppressed by Lin Feng. This was unacceptable to Wu Tianyuan. Lin Feng said with a smile, "I also thought of the first half of a couplet. I wonder if Brother Wu dares to challenge me?" "Speak," Wu Tianyuan said with a gloomy expression. Lin Feng said with a smile, "Rats are all old regardless of age." Wu Tianyuan frowned and pondered. The others could not help but frown and ponder. Lin Feng's couplet was indeed difficult. Lin Feng said with a smile, "It seems that Brother Wu can't match this couplet, but I have thought of a second half. Listen carefully, Brother Wu." Everyone looked like they were all ears. Lin Feng said, "Turtles have a male and a female, but their surname is Wu." When Lin Feng said the second half of the couplet, Mu Yasi, Suihan, and the rest could not help but laugh. Many of the surrounding cultivators roared with laughter. Wu Tianyuan, on the other hand, was so angry that he vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood after being mocked by Lin Feng. Lin Feng said with a smile, "That's a couplet for entertainment, but Brother Wu actually managed to match it to the point of vomiting blood. This is unprecedented. This little brother is impressed." Chapter 4808. It was really rare to see someone fainting from a pair of couplets. Many people were unhappy with Wu Tianyuan for using couplets to mock Mu Yasi. Because Mu Yasi was the goddess in the hearts of countless people, how could she be humiliated by Wu Tianyuan? Now that they saw Wu Tianyuan vomiting blood and fainting from Lin Feng's sarcasm, it was really satisfying. "Little Feng, you're really something." Suihan was very excited. Her face flushed red. Mu Yasi was also very happy. Although she was a peerless fairy, although she had experienced many things, Mu Yasi was also very angry when she encountered today's incident. Now, Lin Feng was helping her vent her anger. She was naturally very grateful to Lin Feng. Other than gratitude, there seemed to be a trace of other strange feelings. Carry Wu Tianyuan away. Fairy Yuechan witnessed the entire process, but she did not interrupt. She only spoke when Wu Tianyuan fainted from Lin Feng's couplets. Immediately, a few Confucian cultivators carried the unconscious Wu Tianyuan away. At this moment, Fairy Yuechan looked at Lin Feng and said, "Lin Gongzi is very capable. Not only is your cultivation strong, but your talent is also very strong. Even your literary talent is so unfathomable. I admire you." Lin Feng said, "Fairy's words are too much for me. Everyone knows that Senior Master Zhu is a mighty figure in the primordial era. He is a great scholar who wrote books and established theories. Fairy Yuechan is Master Zhu's beloved disciple and must be very talented. My level is not worth mentioning in front of Fairy Yuechan." Fairy Yuechan said, "Young Master is too humble. Actually, studying is just like cultivating. It also requires great talent. If you don't have talent, you won't be able to make a name for yourself. Young Master is very talented." Fairy Yuechan did not say much about Wu Tianyuan's matter, so no one could guess what she was thinking. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't bother with Wu Tianyuan and the others. They were just clowns and weren't worth his attention. In response to Fairy Yuechan's compliment, Lin Feng merely chuckled. He didn't continue studying. Lin Feng was obviously cut out for this. It was just that he didn't take this path. In Lin Feng's view, reading could be a hobby, a pastime, but it was not a way to cultivate. For someone like elementary scholar Ning, he had studied for 70 to 80 years and slowly cultivated his qi. The thunder tribulation descended. He could directly transcend the tribulation and become a peerless expert. Lin Feng didn't like this kind of cultivation method. Lin Feng's preferred method of cultivation was to temper himself in the midst of difficulties, seeking opportunities in the midst of danger. At this moment, Fairy Yuechan said, "Today, everyone is here to admire the plum blossoms. Let's use the plum blossoms as the theme and compose a poem. What does everyone think?" Everyone naturally knew. Fairy Yuechan was selecting some talented people to meet her master, Teacher Zhu. Therefore, after hearing Fairy Yuechan's words, no one had any objections. Everyone began to think. A moment later, Mu Yasi said, "I thought of a poem." Mu Yasi was indeed a talented woman. She thought of a poem about plum blossoms so quickly. It was really amazing. Everyone looked at Mu Yasi. Fairy Yuechan said, "Please recite this poem, Fairy Yuechan." Mu Yasi recited the poem that she thought of. Early blossoms are often cold, and blossoms are often bitter and sour. What is it that on a spring day, the fragrance sits in the air? The peach blossoms smile, and the wanderers are willing to look back. June when tweaks the golden tripod, and only then does he know that the taste is bitter. After hearing Mu Yasi's poem, everyone carefully savored it. A cultivator clapped his hands and praised repeatedly. "Good poem, good poem." Although there's no plum blossom in the entire poem, it completely conveys the concept of a plum blossom in winter. Such a poem can be said to be the work of a master. The others nodded as well. Mu Yasi's poem was really superb. Many people had already written a poem about plum blossoms in their hearts. However, after hearing Mu Yasi's poem, they did not dare to say it out loud. This was because compared to Mu Yasi's poem about plum blossoms, the difference was too great. It would be laughable if they said it out loud. Fairy Yuechan is really pure and has the demeanor of a master. After reading it for a while, Fairy Yuechan could not help but exclaim. The idea of reciting plum blossoms was something that Fairy Yuechan and the others had done when they were cultivating in the Confucian sect. Therefore, Fairy Yuechan had seen many poems about plum blossoms. However, no one else's poem could compare to Mu Yasi's. Mainly, Mu Yasi's poem. The concept was profound. "Yasi has embarrassed herself," Mu Yasi said very humbly. Then, she left. No wonder Mu Yasi was the goddess in the hearts of countless people. She was beautiful, had a powerful cultivation base, and was talented. Even her literary attainment was so high. If such a woman was not a goddess, there would probably be no goddesses in this world. Has anyone else written a poem about plum blossoms? Fairy Yuechan looked at the surrounding cultivators. Many people could not help but smile bitterly. There were naturally many people who had written poems about plum blossoms, but they were too embarrassed to take it out now. Therefore, no one responded to Fairy Yuechan. At this moment, Lin Feng said, "I also thought of a poem." Mu Yasi looked at Lin Feng with interest, not knowing what kind of poem Lin Feng had thought of. For this, she was looking forward to it. "Young master, please recite this poem," Fairy Yuechan said. Lin Feng walked in the pavilion. Then, he began to recite. The flowers swayed and fell, leaving only the beauty to occupy the small garden. The sparse shadows were slanted, the water was clear and shallow, and the fragrance floated in the evening. The frost birds stole a glance before they went down, and the blight butterflies broke their souls if they knew. Fortunately, there was a slight recitation that could be compared, and there was no need to share the honor. In this poem, Lin Feng wrote the plum blossoms in an extraordinary, beautiful, and vivid way. It enhanced the character of the plum blossoms and enriched the realm of the work. It was delicious and praiseworthy. Therefore, many people heard Lin Feng recite this poem. Their faces were full of shock. Even geniuses like Fairy Yuechan and Mu Yasi had beautiful faces. Their faces were full of shock. The sparse shadows were slanted, the water was clear and shallow, and the fragrance floated in the evening. This poem, it also successfully described the beauty of the plum blossoms. It could simply be a masterpiece for all eternity. Look, the plum blossoms are blooming. Suddenly, someone pointed at the plum blossoms that covered the mountains and plains and exclaimed. Everyone looked over. They saw, originally, there were still many plum blossoms on the plum trees that had not bloomed. But now, all the plum blossoms that had not bloomed had actually bloomed. It was simply a miracle. It's Lin Feng. It's his poem. Those plum blossoms sensed the artistic conception of the poem, so they all bloomed, someone said. Everyone gasped in shock, simply not daring to believe it. But all of this was true. Lin Feng's poem reciting plum blossoms. He wrote about the pride of the plum blossoms, wrote about the quality of the plum blossoms, wrote about the beauty of the plum blossoms, and raised the artistic conception of the plum blossoms to the realm of an eternal masterpiece. And the plum blossoms had spirits. So, when they heard Lin Feng's poem, Chapter 4809, Little Friend, come to my Shin Garden for a chat. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the top of the mountain. Master! Fairy Yuechan hurriedly bowed when she heard this voice. Yes, that voice sounded again. Then, the owner of that voice said, Little friend Mu Yasi, come up too. Everyone looked at Lin Feng and Mu Yasi enviously. Obviously, the two of them had become the chosen ones and could meet Master Zhu. Let's go. Lin Feng looked at Mu Yasi and said. Mu Yasi nodded. Then, she quickly flew up Maishin with Lin Feng. Fairy Yuechan said, Everyone, let's continue with the garden party. The others nodded. Although they were envious of Lin Feng and Mu Yasi, that was because they were capable. It was indeed a pity to miss the opportunity to meet Master Zhu. But now, what was done could not be undone. They could only accept it. In fact, after the garden party, there would be a small trade fair. This could be considered a small event for the top geniuses. Everyone was here for Master Zhu. Then, it was for this trade fair. If anyone had any treasures they did not need, they could exchange them for treasures they needed. It was said that Master Zhu would also take out 10 treasures from the primordial era to exchange with everyone. These were treasures from hundreds of millions of years ago. Everyone was naturally looking forward to it. Lin Feng and Mu Yasi arrived at the top of the mountain. There was an elegant garden at the top of the mountain. After arriving here, Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, Junior Lin Feng, I'm here to seek an audience with Senior. Mu Yasi bowed and said, Thank you. Junior Mu Yasi is here to seek an audience with Senior. Little friends, come in. Master Zhu's voice came from inside. Lin Feng and Mu Yasi walked into the garden. A page boy led Lin Feng and Mu Yasi into a courtyard. There was a bamboo building built here. It must be the place where Master Zhu studied. After arriving here, the page boy left. Then, an old man walked out. When he saw the old man, Lin Feng's face was filled with disbelief. Then, he was pleasantly surprised. This old man was no ordinary person. It was Lin Feng's old friend from the Tianwu continent, Ning Shuhai. Back then, after Ning Xiaocai had studied for 70 to 80 years, the Thunder Tribulation had descended, and he had become an emperor. It was truly inconceivable. That was also the first time Lin Feng had seen how extraordinary the Confucian sect was. Lin Feng was now reading books in his spare time, and he was also learning from Ning Xiaocai. Back then, Scholar Ning had left the 9 prefectures. Lin Feng never saw Ning Xiaocai again. More than 100 years had passed. Over the years, Lin Feng would sometimes think of some of his old friends. He wondered how they were doing now. Now that he saw elementary Scholar Ning, he was both shocked and happy. Brother Lin, how have you been? Ning Xiaocai smiled and asked Lin Feng. Now that Ning Xiaocai had become a cultivator, he was only 60 years older than Lin Feng. So now, they were talking as if they were peers. Lin Feng said, Everything is fine, but I didn't expect to meet Brother Ning here. This is called meeting if fate wills it. We don't know each other. Ning Xiaocai said with a smile. Lin Feng also smiled and nodded. Then, he asked, Brother Ning, why are you here? A few years ago, I became a disciple of Teacher Zhu, and I studied with him. Ning Xiaocai said. If it were any other cultivator, they would say that they were cultivating with Teacher Zhu. But the Confucian sect would say that they were studying with Teacher Zhu. The Confucian sect was special. For them, studying was equivalent to cultivating. Lin Feng said, Congratulations, Brother Ning. To be able to study with a great sage like Teacher Zhu, you will definitely achieve unimaginable achievements in the future. Ning Xiaocai said, I never thought about that. I just want to spend the rest of my life comprehending the sage's scriptures. If I can do that, I can die without regrets. Lin Feng said. Brother Ning, you can definitely do it. Ning Xiaocai said, let's not stand outside. Let's go in and pay respects to my master. Lin Feng and Mu Yasi nodded. Then, they followed Ning Xiaocai to the second floor. When they entered the room, Lin Feng saw a white-haired old man holding a book slip in his hand. He was reading it with great interest. This old man must be Teacher Zhu. Teacher Zhu had a scholarly aura. At a glance, one could tell that he was a great scholar. He was an existence that the Confucian sect respected as a quasi-sage. His status in the Confucian sect was extremely high. Master, young hero Lin Feng and Fairy Mu Yasi are here, Ning Xiaocai said. Teacher Zhu raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. Then, he said with a smile, what a good sentence. The thin shadow is horizontal and the water is clear and shallow. The fragrance drifts under the dusk of the moon. It's truly an eternal sentence. Even this old man hasn't heard such an eternal sentence in a long time. Little friend, this poem can be included in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems of my Confucian sect. It can be studied by all the Confucian sect cultivators in the world. What do you think, young friend? Lin Feng didn't expect that Teacher Zhu would have such a high evaluation of his poem. Lin Feng had naturally heard of the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems. It was one of the sacred texts of the Confucian sect. The poems recorded in it were truly poems that had been passed down through the ages. For example, Wine Sword Immortally Taishuan's Bringing in the Wine, Quiet Night Thoughts, and other classic poems were included in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems. Another example was Shaoling Yi Elder, Duzime's Spring Gazing, Joyful Rain on a Spring Night, and other classic poems were also included. In fact, Lin Feng liked the poem Joyful Rain on a Spring Night more. When Lin Feng was 8 years old, he already knew the popular sentence, good rain knows the season, and spring comes. This ancient poem came from Joyful Rain on a Spring Night. Therefore, the poems that could be included in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems were definitely classic poems. Lin Feng said, it is this junior's honor to have my poems included in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems. Teacher Zhu smiled. Since young friend has agreed, this old man will use the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems when we return. When the time comes, I would like to invite young friend to return with this old man. I wonder if young friend has the time? Since there was no progress on the matter of the bone hall, Lin Feng could only put it aside for the time being. Therefore, he naturally had the time to follow Teacher Zhu to the Confucian sect. Moreover, Lin Feng was very curious about the Confucian sect. Lin Feng was very much looking forward to this trip. Lin Feng said, this junior naturally has the time. Teacher Zhu smiled. That's good. After pausing for a moment, he continued, the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems are very extraordinary. They have been fused with the spirit and will of the great poets of the Confucian sect. When the time comes, if young friend has the fortune, when your poems are included in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poems, you might be able to obtain their blessings. If that's the case, when the time comes, it will definitely be of great benefit to young friend's cultivation. Lin Feng was delighted to hear this. This sort of blessing was equivalent to being enlightened in the world of cultivators. Once one received the blessings of these great scholars. Chapter 48:10. Teacher Zhu looked at Mu Yasi and said with a smile, if I remember correctly, your father is called Mu Yuntu, right? She was slightly surprised. She did not expect the old man to know her father. She said, yes, my father is called Mu Yuntu. Could it be that my father and senior know each other? Yes, we do know each other. This goes back many years. I've met your father a few times. It's a pity that your father didn't join the Confucian sect. If he had, his future achievements might have been greater. Master Zhu sighed. His voice was filled with regret. It turned out that Mu Yasi's father had shown extraordinary literary attainment when he was young. Coincidentally, Master Zhu met her father and felt that he was definitely a genius of the Confucian sect. Therefore, he wanted to take him in as his disciple. He wanted to teach him well. Perhaps, the Confucian sect would produce another great Confucian. Unfortunately, Mu Xia's father was not interested in the Confucian sect. What he was truly interested in was the culture passed down by the Confucian sect. It was a hobby. It had nothing to do with cultivation. At that time, Mu Xia's father and Master Zhu had a close relationship. They had met several times. Every time they met, Master Zhu would persuade Mu Xia's father. However, Mu Xia's father had never agreed. After seeing her, Master Zhu could not help but think of her father. It had been many years since they last met. Master Zhu could not help but sigh. Mu Xia said, "My father likes Confucian literature, but he might not be suitable for the Confucian sect's cultivation path." "That's what your father said back then, too." Teacher Zhu faintly smiled and said, "In truth, it's hard to say what the future will be like before we take that step. My emotions just now were only because I had some regrets in my heart. If my father knows that Senior is still thinking about the fate we had in the past, I'm sure he'll be very happy," said Mu Yasi. Teacher Zhu smiled faintly and didn't continue on this topic. A light flashed in his hand. A true dragon and a phoenix appeared. The dragon was about the length of a palm. Although it was not very long, its body was vigorous and powerful. The phoenix was about the size of a palm and was surrounded by divine fire. Lin Feng's eyelids twitched slightly. Mu Yasi's eyes were also fixed on the two items. Master Zhu smiled and said, "Originally, I only wanted to take out the sky-cleansing phoenix diagram, but since the two of you are here today, I'll take out the true dragon crouching sky diagram as well. Perhaps this is a type of fate." The true dragon and phoenix originally represented Yang and Yin respectively. Perhaps this indicates that the two of you are destined to be married. Mu Yasi's pretty face instantly flushed when she heard him say that. Previously, she did not have any feelings for Lin Feng and only treated Lin Feng as a friend whom she could chat with. But now, after witnessing Lin Feng's literary attainment, Mu Yasi developed a good impression of Lin Feng. A peerless fairy like Mu Yasi would not easily give herself to others, unless there was something that could attract her attention. Coincidentally, there was something about Lin Feng that attracted her attention. Therefore, when she heard Master Zhu's words, she felt a little shy. After all, she was a woman. When it came to marriage, she was bound to feel a little embarrassed. Lin Feng, on the other hand, was a little apprehensive. He did not know why Master Zhu would say such things at this time. What was his motive? Could it be that he simply wanted to matchmake him and Mu Yasi? Teacher Zhu smiled and said, "Of course, you can't force anything, especially when it comes to matters like marriage. You need to be extremely careful. You young people still need to figure out the final outcome of your matters." Master Zhu's words were more for Lin Feng to hear. He had already cast a brick to attract Jade. Whether or not he could win the beauty's heart would depend on Lin Feng's ability. Mu Yasi blushed and was momentarily at a loss for words. In this world where chastity was highly valued, no matter how outstanding a woman was, she could not let go of her pride when faced with such a sensitive topic. Lin Feng knew that he needed to change the topic so that Mu Yasi would not be so embarrassed. He said, "Previously, I heard from others that if I can meet you, I can ask you about some of the difficulties I've encountered in cultivation. I wonder if that's true?" Master Zhu smiled and said, "Of course." Lin Feng looked at Mu Yasi and said, "Fairy Yasi, have you encountered anything that you don't understand in your cultivation? If so, you can ask me now." Mu Yasi looked at Lin Feng gratefully. She knew that Lin Feng was helping her out, so he brought the topic to cultivation. Previously, Lin Feng had helped her deal with Zhang Yuan outside. At that time, her impression of Lin Feng had increased greatly. Now that Lin Feng had helped her out again, she could not help but feel that Lin Feng was really a considerate man. Mu Yasi's impression of Lin Feng increased greatly again. Mu Yasi did have a lot of questions about her cultivation and wanted to consult the old man about it. Just as she was about to speak, Master Zhu said, "No hurry, no hurry. You've just gone through the garden tour, so your emotions are not calm yet. It's not a good time to seek answers to your questions. Wait until your emotions are completely calm and peaceful. Then, you can better understand the doubts in your hearts. You two can study with me for 3 days first." Lin Feng and Mu Yasi naturally did not have any objections to Master Zhu's request. Indeed, it was as Master Zhu had said. After experiencing all kinds of things, both of them were in a state of unease. At this stage, They still had other thoughts in their minds, even if Master Zhu had answered some of their doubts about cultivation. However, at this time, there was probably very little that could truly enter their hearts. After 3 days of study, they could calm their hearts and clear their minds of distracting thoughts before asking Master Zhu those questions. By then, they would be able to comprehend more. It's our honor to be able to study with Senior, Lin Feng and Mu Yasi said in unison. The two of them actually had such tacit understanding. Master Zhu smiled and said, "What a match made in heaven." Mu Yasi's pretty face could not help but blush slightly again. "Go find your own master." Master Zhu looked at the true dragon and phoenix floating in front of him. As soon as he finished speaking, the true dragon flew towards Lin Feng. The phoenix flew towards Mu Yasi. Chapter 48:11. The true dragon turned into an ancient diagram. The phoenix also turned into an ancient diagram. The true dragon crouching heavens diagram and the phoenix sky cleansing diagram are both ancient weapons. The ones in your hands are forbidden weapons made based on these two ancient weapons. If they are activated, the power released will be extremely terrifying. Each forbidden weapon has 3 chances to be used. I hope that you can use the forbidden weapons in your hands well. Master Zhu said, "Thank you, Senior." After Lin Feng and Mu Yasi received their forbidden weapons, they thanked Master Zhu together. This was a forbidden weapon that was made based on an ancient weapon. Although it might not be as terrifying as an ancient weapon, however, its power would definitely be extremely heaven-defying. At a critical moment, it might be able to reverse the situation of a life and death battle. Therefore, a forbidden weapon of this level was good for Lin Feng. Whether it was Mu Yasi or not, they were both very useful. Now, the two of them were extremely happy. "There are books here. You can each choose a book," Master Zhu said. Lin Feng and Mu Yasi nodded. They each chose a book. Then, they found a place to sit down. They began to flip through the books. Master Zhu was very particular about reading. For example, when he read, he needed spirit tea to accompany him. In Master Zhu's opinion, the spirit tea could help him focus his mind and make his thoughts clearer. Therefore, spirit tea helped him. It was extremely important for reading. Reading nourished one's spirit. Naturally, he didn't read 24 hours a day. Master Zhu only read 3 hours a day. In Master Zhu's words, reading too much every day. It wasn't necessarily a good thing. No matter what he did, there had to be a limit. When this limit was exceeded, it would have a bad effect. The small trade fair outside lasted for 3 days. After the first day of reading ended, Lin Feng found Taoist Wu Liang and the others. Lin Feng told them to return to their residence for the time being after the trade fair. When he went to the Confucian sect, he would ask if he could bring a few people with him. Hearing that there was a chance to go to the Confucian sect, Taoist Wu Liang was extremely excited. When Lin Feng saw Taoist Wu Liang's excited expression, he couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. The immeasurable Taoist couldn't be thinking about the tomb of the Confucian sect's ancestors, right? If you really go to the Confucian sect, you'd best behave yourself. Although the Confucian sect keeps a low profile, it's still very frightening. Lin Feng stared at Taoist Wu Liang and said. Taoist Wu Liang grinned and said, "Of course. I know what's important and what's not." Lin Feng had some doubts about Taoist Wu Liang's words, but when the time came, he could only take one step at a time. Furthermore, he had to send someone to keep an eye on immeasurable Taoist. He could not allow him to do anything out of line. On the second day of Lin Feng's study with Teacher Zhu, he bumped into Wu Tianyuan, who was studying with Teacher Zhu. Wu Tianyuan looked at Lin Feng with hostility. Obviously, he hated Lin Feng to the core. However, Lin Feng didn't bother with Wu Tianyuan. After all, Wu Tianyuan was Teacher Zhu's grand disciple. Lin Feng wouldn't touch Wu Tianyuan even if he had to give Teacher Zhu face, unless Wu Tianyuan dared to provoke him again. Otherwise, Lin Feng couldn't be bothered to deal with him. Teacher Zhu probably knew that he had used the couplet to ridicule Wu Tianyuan, which had caused Wu Tianyuan to vomit blood and faint. However, Teacher Zhu had never mentioned this matter. It seemed that Teacher Zhu wouldn't interfere with the matters of the younger generation. Thinking about it, it made sense. As a great scholar of the current era, Teacher Zhu was naturally able to see the essence of everything. He wouldn't casually interfere with the matters of the younger generation. The next day, after finishing his study, Lin Feng and Ning Xiaocai were admiring the plum blossoms in Plum Mountain. Ning Xiaocai said, "I still remember when I was studying in the mountain god temple in the Barren Mountains. At that time, there was a plum blossom tree not far from the temple. Brother Lin, do you still remember?" "Of course I remember." Lin Feng smiled. This was something that happened more than 100 years ago. Now that he thought about it, it was as if it had happened yesterday. Sometimes, time passed unknowingly just like that. "Time really flies," said Lin Feng. Ning Xiaocai sighed. Then, he continued, "Wu Tianyuan is very talented, but his temper is a little deep. You humiliated him before, so I'm afraid that Wu Tianyuan won't let it go easily." Lin Feng said, "I heard that the clan behind him is very powerful." Ning Xiaocai nodded and said, "Indeed." Then, he continued, "His master is also very extraordinary. He's my eldest senior brother, Su Zishan. He's also a great scholar of the Confucian sect. His status is very revered. He's already broken through to the true immortal realm, so his current realm must be very high." Lin Feng said, "Brother Ning, since you mentioned this person at this time, are you telling me to be wary of Su Zishan?" Ning Xiaocai nodded and said, "Indeed, you need to be wary of Su Zishan. Eldest senior brother is a very protective person. If he hears about what happened in Plum Mountain, I'm afraid that there will be some waves." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Don't worry about me. No matter what happens, I'll be able to resolve it." Ning Xiaocai said, "Of course, I think so too, but one must always be wary of others." Lin Feng nodded. Then, he said, "I feel that Teacher Zhu is trying to matchmake me with Mu Yasi. I wonder if he has other intentions?" Ha 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 ha. Ning Xiaocai laughed loudly after hearing Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng looked at Ning Xiaocai in confusion and asked, "Brother Ning, why are you laughing so unrestrainedly?" Ning Xiaocai maintained his smile and said, "I was rude earlier, but Brother Lin, you don't have to doubt my master's intentions. Actually, my master is a good person, but there's one thing that makes people feel helpless sometimes." Lin Feng asked curiously, "What is it?" Ning Xiaocai lowered his voice and said softly, "My master likes to randomly matchmake people. After I became his disciple, he has already introduced dozens of female cultivators to me." Lin Feng choked when he heard Ning Xiaocai's words. Ning Xiaocai also felt helpless and said, "It's not just me. My master has also introduced many people to blind dates in the Confucian faction." This, Lin Feng's face was filled with an extremely strange expression. Teacher Zhu. That was an existence that the Confucian faction's cultivators respectfully called secondary sage. He was such a highly respected senior. He was revered by the world. He actually had a special hobby of matchmaking. If this matter were to spread, it would probably become the topic of conversation before and after meals. Of course. Chapter 48:12. The Confucian sect was not located in the White Bone region, but in a region south of it. This region, it was called the Confucian sect region. As the name implied, it was a region ruled by the Confucian sect. That was why it was called the Confucian sect region. Lin Feng and Mu Yasi stayed in Meishan for 10 days. During these 10 days, they consulted Master Zhu about various problems they encountered in cultivation. Suddenly, he felt as if he was suddenly enlightened. In fact, anyone who cultivated would encounter all kinds of problems. Sometimes, having a teacher or elder to guide them could save them a lot of detours. This would greatly increase the speed of his cultivation. 10 days later, Master Zhu returned to the Confucian sect. Lin Feng asked Master Zhu if he could bring a few friends to the Confucian sect. Master Zhu readily agreed. Although Master Zhu was an expert from the primordial age, he was not a pedantic person and was more open-minded. This had something to do with one's personality and had nothing to do with how long one had lived. Mu Yasi, on the other hand, did not follow him. She had an epiphany. Thus, she found a quiet place to enter seclusion. If she came out of seclusion, her cultivation would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. The happiest person on the journey was a measurable Taoist. This guy kept grinning from ear to ear. Lin Feng increasingly felt that immeasurable Taoist was up to something. Lin Feng could not let immeasurable Taoist dig up the graves of the Confucian sect's ancestors. If immeasurable Taoist really did such a thing, who knew how big of a commotion it would cause then? He had no way to explain it to the Confucian sect. After the flying ship entered the Confucian sect region, Lin Feng stood on the deck of the flying ship and looked into the distance. He saw a large amount of righteous energy in the void. Lin Feng was very surprised. Righteous energy was very difficult to condense, but here in the Confucian sect region, the overwhelming righteous energy actually covered the sky. It was simply too extraordinary. This was worthy of being a land ruled by the Confucian sect. Inspectors and cultivators didn't want to come to such a place because it was too harmful to them. It was for this reason that the Confucian sect domain had the fewest evil ghosts and evil cultivators. Of course, few doesn't mean none. Even within the Confucian sect domain, there were still evil ghosts and evil cultivators roaming about. This was something that could not be completely avoided. Not long after, Lin Feng heard the sound of reading. The sound of reading echoed in the void. It did not disperse for a long time. The sound of reading should be the sound of countless people reading together, the sound of reading formed by the fusion of their voices. Confucian sect region. Not only was it enveloped by the awe-inspiring righteousness, moreover, the sound of reading resounded between heaven and earth. For scholars, such a place was the holy land of cultivation that they yearned for the most. There must be many powerful Confucian cultivators in the Confucian sect domain, right? Lin Feng said. Ning Xiaocai said, there are indeed many powerful people, but in reality, there might be a gap between them and the experts of the other domains. That's because it's more difficult for Confucian cultivators to cultivate. After all, reading requires one to understand the essence and integrate it. Only then can one break through and achieve good results in Confucian cultivation. However, it's not easy. Lin Feng naturally understood what Ning Xiaocai meant. The Confucian sect needed to study. The more profound one's study was, the more likely it was to achieve amazing results. Taoist Wuliang said, this era is not the same as before. Who can calm down and study? The Confucian sect had a period of glory, but in the end, it still declined. This is enough to explain many problems. The current world is destined to be a restless world. There are fewer and fewer people who can calm down. Therefore, it's better to look for opportunities everywhere to quickly raise one's cultivation. Ning Xiaocai said, actually, if you can integrate your Confucian sect cultivation, your cultivation speed will be extremely fast. Then, Ning Xiaocai sighed slightly and said, but there are too few people who can truly integrate into it. Ning Xiaocai was obviously a Confucian cultivator who had integrated into the Confucian sect. Ning Xiaocai's experience was somewhat similar to Teacher Zhu's. They were originally ordinary people. Later, they read books to nourish their energy. They wrote books and stood up. With the awe-inspiring righteousness, they broke through the lightning tribulation and officially entered the world of cultivators. Their cultivation speed was extremely fast. This had something to do with their experience. When they were still mortals, they had experienced too many things in their lives. They had already tasted all kinds of human emotions. His understanding of life was not something that ordinary people could compare with. Therefore, when they became true cultivators, their achievements were incomparable to those of ordinary cultivators. However, even in the Confucian sect, Confucian cultivators like Teacher Zhu and Ning Xiaocai were extremely rare. The airship continued to fly in the void. After entering the Confucian sect, another month passed by. Lin Feng and the others entered an ancient forest. The Confucian sect was located in the depths of the forest. That was the place where the dragon veins gathered. Dozens of dragon veins were scattered around. It presented the terrain of a group of dragons. Such a terrain was very special. When he saw this terrain, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. To put it nicely, it's called a group of dragons, but to put it bluntly, it should be called a group of dragons dancing. Immeasurable Taoist said. Lin Feng looked at Immeasurable Taoist and asked, do you have any opinions? Immeasurable Taoist said, of course there are many opinions. Tell me about it. Lin Feng said. Immeasurable Taoist said bluntly, The dragon itself is a powerful creature. So a place with many dragon veins is indeed a treasure land and a holy place for cultivation. However, under normal circumstances, the place where the 8 dragons gather is the most ideal, just in line with the 8 trigrams. The place where the 9 dragons gather is more dangerous, and it's unknown if there are more than 10 dragon veins, or even dozens of dragon veins. That's another story. If there are too many dragon veins, there will be a lot of dragon chi. It will be difficult to suppress the dragon chi, and if the dragon chi can't be suppressed, it will become very irritable, which is extremely detrimental to cultivation. Lin Feng said, but how powerful were the methods of the Confucian sect's predecessors? How could they not know this? But they knew this, yet they still established the Confucian sect here. What does this mean? Immeasurable Taoist said, there must be something strange about this. Lin Feng stroked his chin and said, say, do you think there's something suppressed under the Confucian sect's dragon veins? This? Chapter 48:13. With this kind of terrain, if there's really something suppressed down there, it would be very terrifying. Taoist Wu Liang said, perhaps we can find a chance to investigate it. Taoist Wu Liang rubbed his chin. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. This fellow was probably trying to find out if there was something suppressed underground. Instead, he wanted to see if there was anything worth digging up underground. Lin Feng said, you better give up on that thought. This is the Confucian sect, not a place for you to mess around. Even if there's an immortal king buried down there, you can't have any ideas. I'm just saying it casually. This Taoist has changed his profession. I'm no longer in archaeology. Taoist Wu Liang grinned. It would be strange if Lin Feng believed Taoist Wu Liang's words. This damn Taoist Wu Liang was no longer in archaeology. This kind of thing, no matter who he told it to, no one would believe it. Lin Feng said, you better remember your words. Otherwise, if something really happens, I won't be able to save you. Taoist Wu Liang said, look at what you're saying. What could possibly happen? Not long after, the flying ship stopped. Everyone flew down from the ship. Teacher Zhu returned to the Confucian sect, and the Confucian sect's disciples came out to welcome him. Teacher Zhu's position in the Confucian sect was extremely revered. He was one of the 3 ancestors of the Confucian sect. Even the current head of the Confucian sect had to respectfully address Teacher Zhu as martial uncle. Lin Feng, Taoist Wu Liang, Du Zhu, the heretic sovereign sage, and the 2 ghost emperors followed the Confucian sect's people into the Confucian sect. Inside the Confucian sect, there were many schools scattered around. Every day, the Confucian sect's cultivators needed to read books. In addition to reading books, there would also be teachers to teach and dispel doubts. Apart from that, there were also discussion groups. This was a very novel way of teaching. This method of teaching just happened to confirm Confucius's famous saying, when 3 people walk together, they are bound to find a teacher. It was a famous saying that had been passed down through the ages. Fairy Yuechan arranged a place for Lin Feng and the others to stay. This was a separate courtyard, and the environment was very elegant. There were many books in each room. You can read ancient books here anytime and anywhere. Taoist Wu Liang picked up a book and flipped through it in boredom. He said, I feel dizzy and sleepy after reading for half an incense stick's worth of time. I wonder how these Confucians managed to persevere for so long. Du Zhu said, that's why there are so few Confucian sects. Lin Feng said, every kind of cultivation has its own characteristics. Although the Confucian sect doesn't have many people, its legacy is still very powerful. This is enough to show how extraordinary the Confucian sect's legacy is. Perhaps only those stuffy gourds can endure the cultivation of the Confucian sect. Taoist Wu Liang casually tossed the book in his hand aside. Then he got up and said, I'm going back to my room to rest. After that, he ran away like a puff of smoke. At night, Fairy Yuechan held a welcoming banquet for everyone. When it came to dealing with matters, Fairy Yuechan was far better than Ning Xiucai. Therefore, Fairy Yuechan was the one who handled these matters. Around 10 some Confucian sect cultivators had come to participate in this welcoming banquet. This included Wu Tianyuan. Wu Tianyuan had clearly come with ill intentions. After all, Lin Feng didn't believe that Wu Tianyuan would come out of the kindness of his heart to welcome him. Wu Tianyuan stood next to a middle-aged cultivator dressed in Confucian robes. Lin Feng asked Ning Xiaocai and learned that the cultivator dressed in Confucian robes was called Su Ming. He was Su Zishan's son. Fairy Yuechan made the introductions, and the banquet was rather peaceful. However, there were some disturbances in the middle. What had happened was that Taoist Wu Liang had drunk too much. Afterward, Taoist Wu Liang held a wine jug in one hand and a wine cup in the other and kept shouting that he and Lin Feng wouldn't leave until they were drunk. Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Taoist Wu Liang was someone who loved wine as much as his life. Moreover, the wine brewed by the Confucian sect was extremely delicious. He hadn't been able to control himself. That was why he had drunk too much. However, it was normal to get drunk at a banquet. However, at this moment, Su Ming came up with a couplet. Su Ming looked at Lin Feng and Taoist Wu Liang and said, "Two apes drink. Let's see when the little monkey gets drunk." Clearly, Su Ming was mocking Lin Feng and Taoist Wu Liang, saying that they were two apes and Lin Feng was the little monkey. Taoist Wu Liang was already drunk, and now he was waiting to see when Lin Feng, the little monkey, would get drunk. Confucian sect cultivators were often very talented in literature, so they didn't use any vulgarities when scolding others. "What are you talking about? Are you looking for a beating?" Du Zhu and the others immediately couldn't take it anymore and looked at Su Ming angrily. Su Ming laughed faintly, completely ignoring the questioning of the poison ancestor and the others. Wu Tianyuan said, "Brother Lin, I only came up with a few couplets to pass the time. I don't mean any harm. Your subordinates are making a big fuss here. It's a disgrace to the culture." Lin Feng waved his hand and gestured for Du Zhu and the others to sit down. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Actually, I like to treat people like scholars. Brother Su's couplet was really good. I also thought of a second half. I wonder if everyone wants to hear it?" Of course, a group of people immediately chimed in. Lin Feng looked at Su Ming and said, "Brother Su's first half was two apes drink. Let's see when the little monkey gets drunk. My second half is a horse eats meat. Let's see how the old beast opens his mouth. Ha 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 ha. Well done. Young master's couplet is the best of all time." After hearing Lin Feng's couplet, Du Zhu, the heretic sovereign sage, and the two ghost emperors immediately burst into laughter. Not only was Lin Feng's couplet neat, but it also used even sharper words to rebuke Su Ming. Su Ming had mocked Lin Feng and Taoist Wu Liang as monkeys. On the other hand, Lin Feng had directly mocked Su Ming as a beast. When the Confucian sect cultivators heard Lin Feng's couplet, the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. This couplet was indeed perfect. However, this couplet was so sharp that it could infuriate them to death. "What did you say?" Su Ming directly stood up, and his eyes could not help but reveal a sinister gaze. Because of his father, Su Ming had an extremely high status in the Confucian sect, who wouldn't treat him politely when they saw him. But now, Lin Feng actually dared to mock him as an old beast. How could Su Ming not be angry? Everyone could feel Su Ming's hostility towards Lin Feng. Some people even thought that Su Ming might teach Lin Feng a lesson. Ning Xiaocai wanted to say something. However, Lin Feng stopped him. After all, Ning Xiaocai still had to cultivate in the Confucian sect and shouldn't offend anyone in the Confucian sect. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Brother Su, couplets are meant to pass the time. That's what makes them interesting. Brother Su has studied for so many years. Could it be that you don't understand this principle?" Many Confucian sect cultivators couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. Lin Feng's words were too sharp. Although Lin Feng's words seemed to be understated, they were actually mocking Su Ming for having studied for so many years for nothing. Chapter 48:14. Very good. Very good. Brother Lin is really talented. Today I, Su Ming, have seen it. I still have some things to deal with, so I'll take my leave first. Su Ming suppressed the monstrous anger in his heart and said, Lin Feng was Master Zhu's guest, and he was Master Zhu's grand disciple. Obviously, he couldn't deal with Lin Feng now. Not to mention, there were also Scholar Ning and Fairy Yuechan who were of higher seniority here. Although, Su Ming didn't put Scholar Ning and Fairy Yuechan in his eyes. However, he still had to take care of some superficial face. Author. The reason why Su Ming was so arrogant was because his father was now the #1 person below the 3 great ancestors of the Confucian sect. His strength even surpassed the Confucian sect's sect master. In addition, the family behind Su Ming had been rooted in the Confucian sect for many years. They were deeply rooted and had a strong foundation. Although Scholar Ning and Fairy Yuechan were Master Zhu's disciples, they were alone and didn't have much say in the Confucian sect. This was also the reason why Su Ming didn't put Scholar Ning and Fairy Yuechan in his eyes. Seeing that Su Ming was about to leave, Lin Feng said with a smile, "Brother Su is leaving. Since Brother Su has something to do, then I won't keep Brother Su. How about we find a time to spar again? I like to discuss literature with a talented and knowledgeable Confucian like Brother Su the most." Hearing Lin Feng's words, those Confucian cultivators couldn't help but laugh. Obviously, Lin Feng was mocking Su Ming again. Su Ming lost to Lin Feng in pairs and was flustered and exasperated. Lin Feng actually used the words talented and knowledgeable to describe Su Ming. Wasn't this slapping Su Ming's face? Great Confucian scholars were all great scholars of the Confucian sect who wrote books and established theories. Su Ming was naturally far inferior. Lin Feng actually called Su Ming a great scholar. Was Su Ming worthy? Of course not. But Lin Feng called him that, in fact, was still slapping Su Ming's face. A short sentence actually slapped Su Ming's face twice. This made everyone present admire Lin Feng's face-slapping methods to the extreme. Su Ming, on the other hand, hated Lin Feng to the core. This was the first time in his life that he had suffered such humiliation. However, he still couldn't fight back. Oomph! In the end, Su Ming snorted coldly, flicked his sleeve, and left. Wu Tianyuan glared viciously at Lin Feng before he left. Fairy Yuechan looked at Lin Feng with great interest. In fact, when Lin Feng had provoked Wu Tianyuan to the point of vomiting blood, Fairy Yuechan had already started paying attention to Lin Feng. Fairy Yuechan was a peerless beauty, and she was also Teacher Zhu's disciple. His standards were naturally very high. Just like Mu Yasi, looks, cultivation base, and talent alone were not enough to impress Fairy Yuechan. Fairy Yuechan valued talent the most. At this moment, Lin Feng appeared in Fairy Yuechan's world. Fairy Yuechan didn't have much contact with Lin Feng, but she had some understanding of Lin Feng's character. Lin Feng was more low-key, but if someone provoked Lin Feng, then Lin Feng would definitely not be polite. He would definitely slap the other party's face. Just like this time, Su Ming wanted to humiliate Lin Feng, but he was slapped in the face by Lin Feng. One could imagine. Today, Su Ming and Lin Feng's couplet would soon spread. When the time came, it would definitely become a hot topic in the Confucian sect. When the time came, Su Ming's face would be completely ruined. And Fairy Yuechan actually hated Su Ming, who was her martial nephew in name, because Su Ming had never taken Fairy Yuechan seriously. Although Fairy Yuechan was much younger than Su Ming. But in the world of cultivators, friendship was never based on age. Instead, it was based on seniority. No matter how young Fairy Yuechan was, she was still Teacher Zhu's direct disciple. Su Ming was a generation younger than Fairy Yuechan. But it wasn't the first time Su Ming didn't give Fairy Yuechan face in the Confucian sect. Now, she could see Lin Feng ruthlessly humiliating Su Ming. Fairy Yuechan was naturally very happy in her heart. The banquet ended. Lin Feng and the others returned to their residence. Ning Xiaocai also came to Lin Feng's place. Ning Xiaocai said with a bitter smile, "Now that the grudge with Su Ming has been set, we don't know what Su Ming will do in the future. And my senior brother Su Zishan, we don't know if he will do anything behind our backs. The Su family's power in the Confucian sect is deeply rooted, so we have to be careful." Lin Feng said, "I don't care. At worst, I can just leave. I'm not a cultivator of the Confucian sect anyway. Brother Ning, you have to be careful. I'm afraid they already know about my relationship with Brother Ning. Although Brother Ning is Teacher Zhu's disciple, I'm sure Teacher Zhu won't interfere with the affairs of the lower class. So, the people below might do a lot of dirty things, so we have to be careful." Ning Xiaocai said, "Don't worry, I know what to do." Both sides chatted for a while, then Ning Xiaocai left. Lin Feng and the others also went back to rest. The next day, Lin Feng woke up when the sun was about to rise. He had just woken up when he heard soft footsteps outside. If it were not for Lin Feng's powerful sixth senses, he would not have been able to hear the sound outside. Lin Feng frowned. He quietly came to the door and opened it. He saw a miserable Taoist priest tiptoeing towards his room. Lin Feng still remembered that this damn Taoist priest was drunk to such an extent. If he did not sleep until late in the morning, how could he wake up? But this immeasurable Taoist priest woke up in the middle of the night and did not know what to do. He did not come back until now. If he had not just woken up, he would not even know about this matter. After seeing Lin Feng, the corners of a miserable Taoist priest's mouth twitched violently. Lin Feng directly grabbed a miserable Taoist priest and dragged him back to his room. He sealed off the room with a restriction to prevent the walls from having ears. Lin Feng silently looked at a miserable Taoist priest and said, "Didn't you swear that you would not do anything out of line? You actually pretended to be asleep yesterday. That's too unethical." A miserable Taoist priest also knew that Lin Feng was a little angry. He hurriedly said, "Brother, don't be angry. This is a professional habit. It's not easy to change it quickly. Let's slowly improve it. However, this time, I really discovered something shocking." Lin Feng slightly frowned and asked, "What shocking thing did you discover?" Chapter 48:15. After pausing for a moment, the immeasurable Taoist continued, "Unfortunately, I didn't see clearly what was locked up. However, I felt that the thing locked up there seemed to be a mysterious creature, but I don't know what kind of creature it is." Lin Feng asked, "Didn't you try to investigate it?" Taoist Wuliang replied, "Of course I did. However, when I tried to investigate what it was, I suddenly felt a cold, killing intent envelop my body, so I quickly left." Could it have been the killing intent coming from the black barrier? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. Taoist Wuliang shook his head and said, "I don't know. It's precisely because I don't know where the killing intent came from that I felt that something was amiss," said Lin Feng. "The Confucian sect is very mysterious. It's normal that they have many secrets. Let's not touch the Confucian sect's secrets. After all, we're just guests of the Confucian sect. If we touch their secrets, we don't know what will happen." Taoist Wuliang nodded and said, "I know. That's good. You've been busy the entire night. Go back and rest," Lin Feng said. Taoist Wuliang didn't stay at Lin Feng's place for long and returned to his room to rest. Once the damned Taoist Wuliang left, Lin Feng couldn't help but rub his head. He hoped that the experts of the Confucian sect hadn't noticed Taoist Wuliang's actions. If they did, it would be rather troublesome. At that time, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. The next day, Mr. Zhu came to Lin Feng's place. When he saw Lin Feng, Mr. Zhu smiled and said, "Young friend, have you gotten used to living here? The scenery here is beautiful, and the weather is pleasant." "This junior is very comfortable," Lin Feng said. Mr. Zhu smiled and said, "That's good. I've come to bring you to the saint's palace." The 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poems are enshrined in the sage's palace. Therefore, we need to go to the sage's palace and offer the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poems as a sacrifice. When Lin Feng heard that, he was surprised. He asked curiously, "The 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry doesn't sound like an ordinary book. Is there something special about it?" Teacher Zhu smiled and said, "The truth is that the 9 volumes of Confucian poetry is a bronze book. In the beginning, it was used as a medium to record the poems of Confucian virtuous paragons, but as time passed and more poems were recorded, the 9 volumes of Confucian poetry also changed. I'm sure you've heard of the saying that words are alive, and the words gave these ancient poems spirituality. Under the nourishment of these ancient poems, this ancient bronze book gradually gave birth to its own deity." Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. In that case, right now, the 9 scrolls of Confucian sect's ancient poems were equivalent to an extremely powerful magic treasure. However, this kind of magic treasure was very different from ordinary magic treasures, because This magic treasure had been fused with the will of many Confucian virtuous paragons. In fact, if the ancient poems he had composed could be recorded in the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry, when the time came, the 9 scrolls of Confucian sect's ancient poems would be imprinted with his will. Before long, Lin Feng followed teacher Zhu to the sage's palace. In front of the sage's palace was a huge plaza. At this moment, there were many cultivators gathered in the plaza. The cultivators in the plaza were all members of the Confucian sect. There were many attendants, elders, grand elders, and even the sect master. In addition, the 5 vice sect masters of the Confucian sect were also present. The first vice sect master of the Confucian sect was none other than Su Ming's father, Su Zishan. He was a cultivator who looked to be in his 50s or 60s, but in reality, Su Zishan had already cultivated for 30 million years. In the Confucian sect, there weren't many people older than him. As for the sect master of the Confucian sect, he was an old man with a sage-like demeanor. His name was Sun Zhongshu. It was said that he was about to step down as the sect master of the Confucian sect, and Su Zishan had the highest chance of inheriting the position of sect master of the Confucian sect. Perhaps it was for this reason that Su Ming was becoming more and more arrogant. He didn't even pay attention to people a generation older than him like Scholar Ning and Fairy Yuechan. But today, Su Ming didn't appear. This was because the matter of yesterday's welcome banquet had already spread throughout the Confucian sect. Many people were talking about this matter, and Su Ming naturally became the laughingstock of everyone. This was because Su Ming was normally arrogant. He had a high and mighty attitude, so his reputation in the Confucian sect wasn't very good. As a result, when Su Ming suffered a great loss, many people couldn't help but take pleasure in his misfortune. Su Ming was a person who cared a lot about face. After such a matter, how could he have the face to attend today's banquet? He didn't want to see those people mocking him. Master, that fellow walking next to teacher Zhu is Lin Feng. Wu Tianyuan pointed at Lin Feng. Su Zishan looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was expressionless. I've seen Lin Beidian back then. His son's ability is much worse than his father's, but his personality is much more arrogant than his father's. Su Zishan couldn't help but sneer. Wu Tianyuan was overjoyed. He thought he knew his master quite well. Now that he saw the sneer on his master's face, Wu Tianyuan knew that his master must have a lot of opinions about Lin Feng. Wu Tianyuan knew how terrifying his teacher was. If his teacher wanted to kill Lin Feng, he would be in trouble. In Wu Tianyuan's opinion, Lin Feng would undoubtedly die. At this moment, Lin Feng was walking next to teacher Zhu towards the saint's palace. Taoist Wu Liang, Du Zhu, heretic sovereign sage, and the 2 ghost emperors were stopped. They had to stop at the square outside and wait for Lin Feng. Lin Feng entered the saint's palace and saw a saint statue enshrined in the hall. This saint statue was none other than Saint Kong's statue. This person was the founder of the Confucian sect. Teacher Zhu kowtowed to Saint Kong's statue. Lin Feng also imitated teacher Zhu's actions and kowtowed to Saint Kong's statue. Then, teacher Zhu and Lin Feng offered incense to Saint Kong. After the 2 of them stood up, Lin Feng followed teacher Zhu into the inner hall. There was also a huge shrine in the inner hall. There was no statue on the shrine. However, there were many memorial tablets placed on it. Those memorial tablets were the memorial tablets of the ancestors of the Confucian sect. The person enshrined on the highest memorial tablet was called Confucius. Confucius was the name of Saint Kong. The person enshrined on the lower memorial tablet was called Jiku. This person's background was also extremely extraordinary. This cultivator was the 2nd saint of the Confucian sect. Because his mother's surname was Ming, and because of the drastic changes in his family, he took his mother's surname. Therefore, he was respectfully called Saint Ming by his descendants. The appearance of Saints Kong and Ming had once pushed the Confucian sect to the peak. Chapter 48:16. As for the other sages of the Confucian sect, there was no lack of legendary figures. This was the resting place of the Confucian sages. Their spirit tablets could rest in peace here. Every day, the Confucian cultivators would offer sacrifices to the deceased Confucian sages. Therefore, this place was filled with incense every day. Perhaps this was the so-called eternal flame inheritance. Mighty 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry, please come out. A new poem will be recorded in the bronze book. Teacher Zhu said in a pious voice. Buzz. As soon as Teacher Zhu finished speaking, a bronze book appeared out of thin air. This bronze book should be the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry. It was unknown where this fellow had been hiding. Even Lin Feng had not been able to find a trace of it. How many years has it been since there was a poem worthy of being recorded in the bronze book? I can't even remember it clearly. Suddenly, a voice came from within the bronze book. Lin Feng knew that the owner of this voice should be the deity of the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry. The poem this time will definitely be recorded in the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry, Teacher Zhu said confidently. The deity of the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry said in surprise, "You are actually that confident?" Teacher Zhu nodded and said, "Of course, this ancient poem can be said to be an eternal masterpiece. Is this the poem composed by the young man beside you?" The deity of the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry asked. "Yes, it is his ancient poem. Although this young friend is young, his literary attainment is extremely high." Teacher Zhu praised Lin Feng. "This young friend doesn't seem to be a Confucian disciple." The deity of the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry said. Teacher Zhu nodded and said, "He is indeed not a Confucian disciple." The deity of the 9 scrolls of Confucian ancient poetry sighed and said, "Over the years, there have been many talented cultivators who have not been a Confucian disciple. It is truly a pity." This was something that made Teacher Zhu feel rather helpless. However, everyone had their own aspirations. Some things could not be forced. Whether it was the gods in the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry or Teacher Zhu, they all understood this principle. The 9 scrolls deity said, "Then let's begin the ceremony. Let's see if we can actually record this story into the bronze book." "All right," Teacher Zhu nodded. Then, he took out a piece of brocade, a brush, ink, and an inkstone and placed them on the table beside him. Master Zhu looked at Lin Feng and said, "Young friend, write your poem on the silk." Lin Feng nodded. He walked over to the table and picked up a brush. Then, he began to write the ancient poem that he had composed before. Yoshimi Yamaguchi many fragrant flowers swayed and fell, leaving only Xian Yen alone, occupying the amorous feelings of the small garden. The sparse shadow is slanting, the water is clear and shallow, the fragrance floats in the air, the moon is dusk. Frost fowl steals a glance before descending, blight butterfly seizes its soul if it knows. Fortunately, there is a small chant that can be used together, and there is no need for sandalwood planks to work with Jin Zun. After he finished writing this ancient poem, in an instant, flowers fell from the sky, and golden lotuses sprouted from the ground. Seeing this, Teacher Zhu could not help but rejoice. With such a phenomenon occurring, there was a high chance that Lin Feng's poem would be recorded into the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. Even the gods in the 9 scrolls deity could not help but be slightly shocked. Because, over the long years, it wasn't common for an ancient poem to cause such a change. Only occasionally would such a situation occur. Whenever such a situation occurred, it meant that a world-shaking poem had appeared. Burn the brocade and offer it to the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. Whether it succeeds or not, we will know soon enough. Teacher Zhu said. In truth, Lin Feng knew that this sacrifice was not to obtain the approval of the gods in the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. Instead, it was to obtain the approval of the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry that had been imprinted on them. Only with their approval would the poems of later generations be recorded into the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. As for the gods in the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry, they were unable to choose which poems could be recorded and which could not. Lin Feng obeyed and lit the brocade with the poem. Then he placed the brocade in the sacrificial basin in front of him. Once the brocade was burned to ashes, large golden characters flew out from the brocade. Those large golden characters, it just so happened to form a poem. Then, those large golden characters all flew toward the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. The 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry seemed to have sensed something and began to fiercely vibrate. After sensing the vibrations of the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry, Lin Feng was slightly delighted. For the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry to vibrate like this, did that mean that the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry had approved of his poem? If this was the case, Lin Feng was naturally very happy. Because once his poem was recorded into the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry, it might be able to resonate with the sages. At that time, the sages would bestow good fortune upon him. In the end, those golden characters fused into the bronze book. Kongyu is benevolent. Mengyu is righteous. A just cause enjoys much support. An unjust cause finds little support. Dismiss the 100 schools of thought. Respect only Confucianism. At this time, figures appeared one after another. Every time a figure appeared, that figure would recite a famous sentence. That was the academic ideology of Confucianism. Every academic ideology contained the great Tao of heaven and earth, the relationship between man and nature, and the etiquette between ruler and minister. Then Lin Feng saw a scene that shocked him. In the void, a figure was condensing. That figure. It actually looked exactly like him. He only heard this figure reciting the ancient poem that Lin Feng had just written. The flowers swayed and fell alone, occupying the amorous feelings of the small garden. The sparse shadow was slanting, the water was clear and shallow, and the fragrance floated in the evening. The frost bird stole a glance, and the blight butterfly knew that it would break its soul. Fortunately, there was a slight recitation that could be compared to each other, and there was no need for sandalwood boards and gold. After this ancient poem was recited, rays of holy light surged over. It enveloped him within. That figure was formed by Lin Feng's will. Now, Lin Feng's will was fusing into the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. And those who had previously fused into the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry were all Confucian predecessors, such as Confucius and Meng Qi. They were all poetry masters, such as Li Taixian and Du Zimei. And now, Lin Feng's willpower. It was about to be integrated into it. And these legendary figures, together, they turned into the imprint of the 9 scrolls of Confucian poetry. They were respected by the Confucian cultivators and the Confucian scholars of the world. Think about it. It made people feel extremely excited. In the end, Lin Feng's will imprint appeared with those Confucian scholars and walked together with those poetry masters. Then, he became one of them. At the same time, those Confucian predecessors and poetry masters all looked at Lin Feng. They seemed to be smiling. A majestic righteous energy descended from the sky and surged towards Lin Feng's body. Chapter 48:17. Lin Feng was naturally looking forward to another breakthrough. And ever since he broke through to the itinerant immortal realm, Lin Feng's realm had been stagnant. Now, Lin Feng saw the hope of a breakthrough. When the majestic, awe-inspiring righteousness surged over, the awe-inspiring righteousness was all devoured by Lin Feng. The awe-inspiring righteousness was the orthodox energy of the Confucian path. It was very pure. This was an extraordinary energy. Lin Feng still remembered some of the content recorded in Scholar Ning's book, Talk of Gods and Ghosts. It said that there was a prime minister who studied all his life and cultivated the awe-inspiring righteousness. There were demons who wanted to kill him. However, he was killed by the prime minister's roar. That prime minister actually didn't cultivate, but he could roar and kill demons. It was because he cultivated the awe-inspiring righteousness. With the awe-inspiring righteousness, demons naturally couldn't invade. And at this moment, Lin Feng was trying to completely refine and absorb the awe-inspiring righteousness. He felt that if he could refine and absorb the awe-inspiring righteousness, his realm would definitely improve by quite a bit. As time passed, the awe-inspiring righteousness was constantly being absorbed by Lin Feng's body. Teacher Zhu stood to the side and didn't disturb Lin Feng. Lin Feng's realm improved very quickly. Not long after, his realm broke through from the first heaven of the itinerant immortal realm to the second heaven of the itinerant immortal realm. Then, he broke through to the third heaven of the itinerant immortal realm. But even after breaking through to this realm, he still didn't stop. Then, he broke through to the fourth heaven of the itinerant immortal realm. But Lin Feng's realm was still breaking through. Finally, Lin Feng's realm broke through to the fifth heaven of the itinerant immortal realm. This made Lin Feng wild with joy. The fifth heaven of the itinerant immortal realm. This time, his realm had increased by 4 levels, which was really not easy. After all, in the world of cultivators, it was still relatively rare to increase 4 levels in one go. It was only possible to do this if one had a great opportunity. For Lin Feng, it was even more difficult for him to increase 4 levels at once. This was because Lin Feng's accumulation was too large. Lin Feng's accumulation was too large, so it was very difficult for him to make a breakthrough. The amount of energy he needed to increase 1 level was equivalent to what others needed to increase 5 or 6 levels or even more. This was one of the main reasons why it was so difficult for Lin Feng to break through. What's more, Lin Feng had risen by 4 levels this time. If someone else were to obtain this Aeoran vital energy, they would be able to increase their strength by several levels. This time, Lin Feng's continuous breakthroughs had greatly increased his combat strength. Lin Feng felt that his body was filled with power. It was as if he could blow up a planet with a single punch. This feeling was really comfortable. Congratulations on your breakthrough. Teacher Zhu looked at Lin Feng and said with a smile. Lin Feng bowed to Teacher Zhu and said, "Thank you, Senior, for giving this junior this opportunity. Otherwise, this junior would not have been able to obtain such an opportunity." Teacher Zhu smiled and said, "This was obtained through your own efforts." Then, Teacher Zhu's tone changed, and he said with a smile, "I see that this young friend is quite knowledgeable and accomplished in literature. Why don't you stay in the Confucian sect and cultivate? In the future, you will definitely become a sage on par with Confucius and Mencius." Teacher Zhu's evaluation of Lin Feng could be said to be extremely high. However, Lin Feng did not let it go to his head. What's more, the Confucian sect's cultivation was not necessarily suitable for Lin Feng. After all, Lin Feng had a very active personality. He liked to walk around and look for opportunities everywhere. He did not always read books. Reading books was a form of pleasure. Reading books in his free time was a very pleasant thing to do. However, if he used his own pleasure as a way to cultivate and advance, then Lin Feng was worried that this kind of pleasure would eventually drift away from him. Lin Feng said tactfully, "This junior is still the master of the Sin realm. There are many things that this junior needs to deal with in the Sin realm. Thus, I cannot stay in the Confucian sect." Teacher Zhu sighed and said, "Yes, that is quite a pity. Right, there is one more thing I want to talk to you about." "Senior, please speak," Lin Feng said. Teacher Zhu said, "What do you think of this old man's little disciple, Fairy Yuechan?" Lin Feng was slightly taken aback. He did not know why Teacher Zhu had brought up Fairy Yuechan at this moment. Lin Feng thought for a moment and said, "Fairy Yuechan is as beautiful as a fairy. She is also very knowledgeable and well-versed in the 4 arts. She is naturally a rare and wonderful woman." Teacher Zhu smiled and said, "I feel that my little disciple treats you differently from others. I wonder what you think of my little disciple. Do you want this old man to play matchmaker for the 2 of you?" After hearing Teacher Zhu's words, Lin Feng almost fainted on the ground. Not long ago, Teacher Zhu had just set him up with Mu Yasi. Now, Teacher Zhu was actually trying to set him up with his little disciple, Fairy Yuechan. Lin Feng suddenly thought of what Scholar Ning had said to him. Teacher Zhu liked to play matchmaker. Moreover, it had already reached a point of no return. Now it seemed that was really the case. Lin Feng did not have much contact with Fairy Yuechan, and he did not feel that she had any special thoughts about him. Therefore, Lin Feng naturally did not believe Teacher Zhu's words. This was a farce to begin with. Lin Feng said, "Senior, this junior is now wholeheartedly focused on cultivation. I have no intention of having any romantic feelings." After saying this, Lin Feng could not help but feel ashamed in his heart. He actually said such words that went against his heart. However, in order to push away the matter of Teacher Zhu's matchmaking, Lin Feng could only do so. "Young friend, you must think twice," Teacher Zhu said. This junior only said those words after careful consideration. "Yi Zichen said." Lin Feng replied. "All right then," Teacher Zhu said helplessly. Lin Feng followed Teacher Zhu out of the saint's palace. Taoist Wu Yang asked, "How is it? Have your poems been recorded in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poetry? Lin Feng nodded. You're really something. This is going to be immortalized for centuries. How awesome! Taoist Wuliang shouted excitedly. The surrounding Confucian cultivators looked at Lin Feng with envy and jealousy. As disciples of the Confucian sect, they dreamed that their poems would one day be recorded in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poetry. Even if they could not obtain the blessings of the predecessors, it was nothing. This was because it was a great honor for their poems to be recorded in the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poetry. Confucian cultivators paid the most attention to their reputation. In front of reputation and substantial benefits, the vast majority of Confucian cultivators would not even think about it and directly choose to obtain a good reputation instead of choosing to obtain benefits. This was the unique way of doing things for Confucian cultivators. However, over the long years, very few people were able to record their poems into the 9 volumes of ancient Confucian poetry. Chapter 48:18. Congratulations, Lin Gongzi. At that moment, Fairy Yuechan walked over to congratulate Lin Feng. When he saw Fairy Yuechan, Lin Feng recalled what Teacher Zhu had said to him in the sage's palace. Fairy Yuechan was indeed beautiful. Her facial features were all extremely beautiful. Lin Feng liked Fairy Yuechan's big, watery eyes the most. It was a pair of very clear eyes. Those eyes, they made Fairy Yuechan look very pitiful. Moreover, Fairy Yuechan was a talented woman. That made her even more attractive. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a few more glances at Fairy Yuechan. Such a beautiful woman. No matter how long he looked at her, he wouldn't get bored. Lin Feng smiled. Thank you, Fairy Yuechan. It's all thanks to you that I came to the Confucian school this time. If you encounter any problems that you can't solve in the future, you must come find me. As long as it's within my power, I won't hesitate. Fairy Yuechan looked at Lin Feng with her beautiful eyes and asked, Young master, are you serious? Lin Feng said, Of course. Fairy Yuechan smiled and said, Yuechan, remember this. If I go find you in the future, you can't avoid me. When the time comes, I'll definitely welcome you with open arms. Lin Feng said with a smile, You beast, how dare you? Fairy Yuechan. The surrounding Confucian school cultivators couldn't help but curse Lin Feng inwardly. Taoist Wu Liang, Du Zhu, the heretic sovereign sage, and the 2 ghost emperors couldn't help but sigh. Lin Feng really could flirt with girls whenever and wherever he wanted. Such methods. It really made people feel ashamed of their inferiority. This was a kind of talent that sometimes couldn't be learned even if one wanted to. Fairy Yuechan's pretty face reddened slightly, and she rolled her eyes at Lin Feng flirtatiously. Not far away, Teacher Zhu saw this scene and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Could it be that he was right? His disciple was interested in Lin Feng? If that was the case, I'll wait until I have time. He told Yuechan about this. The madman matchmaker, Mr. Zhu, couldn't help but smile. Lin Feng and the others did not leave immediately. Instead, he planned to rest for the night before leaving the Confucian sect. Anyway, he didn't mind returning to White Bone City for another day. At night, Mr. Zhu called Fairy Yuechan over. Master. After arriving at Teacher Zhu's place, Fairy Yuechan bowed to him. No need for formalities, Teacher Zhu said. Yuechan stood up and stood aside, waiting for Mr. Zhu's instructions. Master Zhu looked at Yuechan and asked with a smile, Chan, you have been by my side for some time now. Although we are master and disciple in name, I have always treated you like my own granddaughter. Fairy Yuechan said, Yuechan will never forget master's kindness. I will definitely keep it in mind. Mr. Zhu smiled and said, I'm not saying this to get any guarantees from you. I'm saying this because I want to tell you something. Fairy Yuechan looked at Mr. Zhu in confusion, not knowing what Mr. Zhu wanted to say to her. She stood at the side and listened quietly. Mr. Zhu said, Actually, there are many times when Master is envious of young people like you. Youth is capital. There are many things that I can't do at my age. However, you are at the age of youth and bravado. Anything that you want to do, you can boldly try. At this point, Master Zhu's tone changed as he continued, As a woman, you should find a good home to return to. You should be in love with your husband. That is the only way to live a perfect life. Thus, during this period of time, I have helped you find a good candidate to be your future husband. Fairy Yuechan smiled bitterly when she heard this. After going around in a big circle, so Master wanted to matchmake for her. Master's nickname, Matchmaker, wasn't just for show. Actually, before this, Mr. Zhu had tried to matchmake Fairy Yuechan. However, Fairy Yuechan had rejected him. She had also told Mr. Zhu not to introduce her to anyone else in the future. Mr. Zhu had agreed. However, as a matchmaker, Mr. Zhu couldn't resist the urge in his heart. Master, didn't you promise me that you won't introduce me to anyone else in the future? I don't have any interest in romance right now. I just want to cultivate properly in front of Master. Fairy Yuechan said helplessly. Mr. Zhu smiled and said, You haven't even heard who it is yet. If you're in such a hurry to reject him, you might end up missing out on a good marriage. Fairy Yuechan knew that it was impossible to stop her master from saying who it was. She wasn't interested in her master's random matchmaking. However, she still had to consider her master's reputation. So she said, All right, may I know who Master is going to introduce to me this time? Mr. Zhu said, I think Mr. Zhu is a good candidate. Said Mr. Zhu. I think Lin Feng is a good person. First of all, he comes from a good family and he's very strong. He's very young, but his cultivation level is extremely high. He's also very talented and learned a lot. He's also very gentle, kind, and low-key. I've never seen such a person in the younger generation. Even the 8 high officials of the undead world can't compare to him. Today, I want to introduce Lin Feng to you. Chan, what do you think of the person I'm going to introduce to you this time? Fairy Yuechan had a good impression of Lin Feng since a long time ago. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to get close to Lin Feng. Now that she heard that her master was going to introduce her to Lin Feng, she felt her heart skip a beat. For a moment, she felt her heart speed up. She couldn't help but blush slightly. Who was Mr. Zhu? Fairy Yuechan's change in expression naturally couldn't escape Mr. Zhu's eyes. Mr. Zhu took a sip of tea, then deliberately sighed and said, Looks like Chan doesn't have any feelings for Lin Feng. Since that's the case, let's drop this matter. Fairy Yuechan hurriedly said, Master, Chan didn't say no. After saying that, Fairy Yuechan realized that she had been a little too proactive. She stuttered, wanting to explain herself, but she didn't know how to. As a result, her blushing face turned even redder. Mr. Zhu smiled and said, I've been through this before, so there's nothing to be embarrassed about when it comes to matters of the heart. If you meet the right person, you should seize the opportunity. If you miss it, you might regret it for the rest of your life. Chan will follow Master's decision, Yuechan said. Ha 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 ha. Mr. Zhu couldn't help but laugh and said, All right, I'll talk to Lin Feng about this tomorrow. Mr. Zhu was really persistent. When Lin Feng had tactfully rejected Mr. Zhu felt that Lin Feng had rejected him because Lin Feng didn't know Yuechan's feelings. If he knew Yuechan's intentions, he would definitely change his mind. Chapter 48:19. Lin Feng naturally did not know about the conversation between Master Zhu and Fairy Yuechan. Right now, Lin Feng was resting in his residence. Tomorrow, he would leave with immeasurable Taoist, Du Zhu, evil sovereign saint, and the 2 ghost emperors. This trip to the Confucian sect's Holy Land had gained a lot. As a result, Lin Feng was in a very good mood. Late that night, a terrifying aura filled the air from outside. Darkness enveloped the land. The patrolling Confucian sect cultivators were all engulfed by the darkness. Those Confucian sect cultivators didn't even have the chance to scream before they died. The darkness continued to surge towards the Confucian sect. Lin Feng seemed to have sensed something. He sat up and looked outside. Dong, dong, dong. At this moment, there was a hurried gong sound coming from outside. Soon, the hurried sound of the gong disappeared. What's going on? Lin Feng was shocked and quickly walked out. Immeasurable Taoist, Du Zhu, evil sovereign saint, and the 2 ghost emperors were also awakened and walked out. They quickly arrived at the courtyard outside. At this time, there were already shouts coming from outside. It seems like someone has invaded the Confucian sect, Du Zhu said. Lin Feng nodded. This shocked him. The Confucian sect was so powerful, but someone had actually invaded it. It was truly inconceivable. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrifying power the other party had to actually dare to invade the Confucian sect at this time. Let's go and take a look, Lin Feng said. Naturally, no one had any objections. Just as the group was about to fly outside, suddenly, a sudden change occurred. Rumble, rumble, rumble. It was as if the earth was shaking. The earth and the mountains were shaking. Crack, crack. Moreover, many cracks appeared on the ground. The cultivators of the Confucian sect couldn't help but cry out in alarm. No one had expected such a shocking change. Something unknown has happened underground. Could it be? Yi Futian murmured. Immeasurable Taoist expression became uncertain. Lin Feng also thought of a possibility. Previously, when the immeasurable Taoist was exploring the underground world, he had once seen a huge black light barrier with 99 dragon aura chains condensed within it. The dragon aura chains seemed to have locked up an unknown, terrifying creature. In addition, there were so many dragon veins here. Lin Feng even guessed that these dragon veins had been moved here by the mighty figures of the Confucian sect. The purpose was to suppress the existence below? Now it seems so. This kind of speculation. There was still a high possibility of that happening. The changes that had happened now were most likely related to the creature below. At this moment, a cloud of black gas surged out from the ground. That cloud of black gas actually transformed into a powerful devil. That devil was extremely ugly, like an evil spirit. The demon head let out a series of low roars and charged towards Lin Feng and the others. The creature imprisoned below is indeed terrifying. Even a strand of gas that it emits can turn into a devil. If that creature comes out, I'm afraid there will be great trouble. Taoist Wuliang said with a solemn expression. Lowly ants, you all deserve to die. I'm going to kill you all. The demon head let out a gloomy cry. His speed was fast to the extreme. In midair, he blasted a palm towards Lin Feng and the others. A huge energy handprint condensed in the void. That huge energy handprint instantly blasted down. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He took out the black dragon sword and slashed out. It directly split apart the energy handprint condensed by the other party. Then, Lin Feng quickly flew towards the demon head. In midair, the two of them fought. This was Lin Feng's first actual combat after breaking through. Lin Feng also wanted to test his combat strength. After fighting with this demon head for more than 10 rounds, this demon head was killed by Lin Feng with a single sword strike. This demon head is really too strange. It seems to have fused with true essence and a trace of a cultivator's will. You guys wait here for the time being. I'll go down and take a look, Lin Feng said. He felt that there must be a great battle happening below, because the devil chi that had just leaked out should be the devil chi produced by the cultivator's body during the battle. Taoist Wuliang said, What are you looking at? What we should do now is run away. If that guy comes out, if we don't run away, if we can't run away, it would be tragic. Taoist Wuliang's words made sense. After all, it was every man for himself. However, Lin Feng had just obtained huge benefits from the Confucian sect. Now that he saw a huge change in the Confucian sect, he just left. Wasn't that a bit too shameless? Therefore, Lin Feng decided to take a look at the situation here before making any plans. Who knew? He might be able to help. Lin Feng said, How about this? I'll go down and take a look. You guys leave the Confucian sect first. Okay. Then we'll leave first. Taoist Wuliang's head nodded like a rattle drum. This guy wanted to run away. However, Du Zhu, the evil sovereign sage, and the two ghost emperors did not leave. Du Zhu said, Young master, we'll go down with you to take a look. Let's hurry up and leave. It's dangerous down there. Little Feng's methods are superb. He can escape even if he encounters danger. We can't do the same. If we encounter danger, we might die. Taoist Wuliang saw that everyone had not left. He stopped and said, If you want to leave, leave by yourself. Du Zhu said unhappily. Lin Feng said, Actually, Taoist Wuliang's words are very reasonable. If we encounter danger, I can handle it. How about this? You guys go outside and see if the Confucian sect cultivators need help. If they do, you guys can help them. All right. Du Zhu and the others thought that it made sense, so they nodded. Then, they flew outside. Lin Feng grabbed Taoist Wu Yang. Why are you grabbing me? Taoist Wu Yang asked gloomily. Lin Feng said, What do you think I'm doing? Of course I'm letting you lead the way. You can go down by yourself. Don't drag me along. Taoist Wu Yang looked like he wanted to cry but had no tears. Lin Feng said, Who asked us to have such a good relationship? We'll enjoy blessings and endure hardships together. If we fight side by side and work together, our sharpness can cut through metal. *CK Your sister's sharpness can cut through metal. Taoist Wu Yang said speechlessly. I don't have a sister. Lin Feng curled his lips. He dragged Taoist Wu Yang and dived down together. Taoist Wu Yang was very helpless. He could only cooperate with Lin Feng and quickly dive down. Lin Feng and Taoist Wu Yang's speed was extremely fast. Not long after, they arrived at the area where the creature was imprisoned. The black energy barrier had long since been shattered into pieces. In fact, many places had already crumbled. Therefore, Lin Feng and Taoist Wu Yang easily entered. When they entered, they saw that the three old men were divided into three directions. He was in a standoff with a terrifying creature. That terrifying creature had the body of a crocodile, the tail of a scorpion, the head of a human, and the arms of a chelan. It also had a pair of thick feet. It was a creature that walked upright. This creature. Chapter 48:20. Lin Feng had seen many foreign creatures before, but this was the first time he had seen such a foreign creature. The aura of this foreign creature was extremely terrifying. The creature that had been imprisoned here before should be this foreign creature in front of him. However, the 99 dragon energy chains that bound him had already broken. It's the king of the foreign creatures. Immeasurable Taoist's expression became ugly. The creatures of the other side were already this terrifying, let alone the king of the foreign creatures. Of the three people who were fighting against the king of creatures, Lin Feng only recognized Mr. Zhu. Lin Feng did not recognize the other two elders, and this was the first time he had seen them. Of the two elders, one was thin and had an immortal-like appearance. The other was fat, with white hair and a ruddy complexion. These two should be the other two of the three ancestors of the Confucian sect. They were also experts that had existed since the archaic era. Their cultivation could be said to be unfathomable. Right now, these three great experts had surrounded the foreign creature, but they did not immediately make a move. It was clear that they were somewhat apprehensive. Isn't this the little ant that secretly came here before? This one likes Fatso the most, because Fatso has a lot of meat. The foreign creature licked his scarlet tongue, and then let out a series of sinister and terrifying laughter. The person that the foreign creature was talking about was naturally Immeasurable Taoist. Immeasurable Taoist shrunk his neck, and then cursed, This old Taoist hates you foreign creatures the most. Immeasurable, your whole family is full of immortals. Later, this old Taoist will beat you until you kneel and beg for mercy. Immeasurable Taoist was also someone who cared a lot about face. There were many fat people. However, often, fat people did not like others calling them fatso. It was because this title represented the meaning of ridicule and ridicule. Immeasurable Taoist naturally did not like others calling him fatso either. This angered Immeasurable Taoist. Immeasurable Taoist naturally would not give the foreign creature king any face. The foreign creature king sneered and said, Really? All kinds of cats and dogs dare to jump in front of this one. This one will eat you damned fatso later. As soon as he finished speaking, a blood-colored moon appeared within the foreign king's body. The blood-red moon exuded an incomparably demonic aura. When he saw the blood-red moon, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Lin Feng suddenly thought of some death zones. Sometimes, blood-colored moons would appear. When those blood-colored moons appeared, nothing good would happen. Right now, what this foreign creature king brought out was actually also a blood moon. Only, he didn't know if this blood moon had any connection with the blood moon that rose from the land of death. Lin Feng carefully sensed the blood moon, wanting to see if it was a magical treasure. However, he felt that it didn't seem like a Dharma treasure. Of course, it could also be a magic treasure. After all, the creatures in the other universe were creatures from another universe. It was normal for the magic treasures refined by the creatures in their universe to be different from the magic treasures refined by the creatures in this universe. Activate the ancient weapon. At this time, the old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion spoke in a deep voice. As soon as he finished speaking, Master Zhu brought out a supreme treasure. That supreme treasure was an ancient diagram. The diagram of a phoenix was drawn on the ancient diagram. Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram. It turned out to be this ancient weapon. Previously, Mu Yasi had obtained a forbidden weapon that was an imitation of the Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram from Master Zhu. Now, Lin Feng saw the real Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram. It was definitely an extremely heaven-defying supreme treasure. It was the cornerstone treasure of the Confucian school. The three ancestors of the Confucian school urged the Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram to attack the foreign creature. The Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram turned into a fire phoenix in midair. The fire phoenix, on the other hand, let out an incomparably loud cry. The phoenix's wings flapped slightly. In an instant, raging flames burned heaven and earth. The Confucian school has really declined. It doesn't even have a saint now. Think about how powerful Confucius and Ming were in the past. Back then, they joined forces to suppress this seat, but unfortunately, they didn't have the means to kill me. They wanted to use the power of the dragon veins to suppress me and then slowly grind me to death, but they failed. Now, this seat has come into being. I will slaughter all of the Confucian school. The foreign king let out a sinister voice. As soon as his voice fell, the blood-colored moon flew out. The blood-colored moon collided with the fire phoenix formed by the ancient weapon, Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram. A world-destroying power rippled out, shattering the dragon veins one after another. This kind of collision was simply too shocking. After being suppressed for so many years, your cultivation has also fallen. The old man with the demeanor of a transcendent being said coldly. Ha ha ha. The foreign king laughed loudly. No matter how much it has fallen, I have no problem dealing with you all. The foreign king was incomparably arrogant. He did not put the three ancestors of the Confucian school in his eyes at all. He continued to urge the blood-colored moon. The three ancestors of the Confucian school joined forces to urge the Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram. However, even if the three ancestors of the Confucian school joined forces to urge the Sky Phoenix Cleansing Diagram, they were still suppressed by the foreign king. Although the realm of the king of the foreign creatures had fallen greatly, even falling from the saint realm, the king of the foreign creatures was still a saint realm expert. However, his comprehension and control of the great Tao were still at the saint realm. This was not something that those cultivators who had never stepped into the saint realm could compare to. Therefore, that was why the foreign king was so terrifying. The three ancestors of the Confucian school's faces became paler and paler. Run, hurry up and run. If you don't run, you really won't be able to escape. Taoist Wuliang said. Lin Feng's expression also became extremely solemn. The foreign king was indeed a bit too terrifying. However, leaving now seemed a bit disloyal. Lin Feng said, "You must have a powerful binding magic treasure, right? Hurry up and take it out to deal with the foreign king. I'll shoot an arrow at him and see if it can kill him. If it can't, it won't be too late for us to run. Let's agree. If we can't beat him, we'll run. I don't want to fight with an existence of this level. My legs are weak now." Taoist Wuliang said with a sad face. Lin Feng didn't believe Taoist Wuliang's nonsense at all. Lin Feng had seen Taoist Wuliang's tribulation with his own eyes, so he knew how powerful Taoist Wuliang was. This damn Taoist Wuliang pretended to be crazy all day long and ran when he encountered danger. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough. It was that Taoist Wuliang didn't want to participate in these battles at all. He only wanted to secretly reap benefits. Of course we agreed. If we can't beat him and still don't run, wouldn't we be stupid? Lin Feng curled his lips and said, as soon as he finished speaking. Chapter 48:21. Immeasurable Taoist took out a rope-type supreme treasure. This supreme treasure was surrounded by immortal energy. It was an ultimate true immortal magic treasure. It felt a bit like an immortal binding rope, but it was obviously not an immortal binding rope. However, even if it was not an immortal binding rope, Lin Feng still felt that this supreme treasure was extremely extraordinary. Perhaps it had an astonishing origin. When Immeasurable Taoist injected his magic power into that treasure actually instantly restrained its form. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng's face revealed an extremely shocked expression. Immeasurable Taoist really had all kinds of treasures. It was unbelievable. But thinking about it, this damned Taoist dug up ancient cultivators' graves all day long. After so many years, he must have collected many top-notch supreme treasures. At this moment, the magic power of the three Confucian sect ancestors continuously poured into the ancient weapon, Phoenix Sky Cleansing Diagram. The three Confucian sect ancestors were indeed very powerful, but in reality, even experts of their level could only activate a portion of the ancient weapon's power. Perhaps only when they reached the Saint Realm could they truly release the power of the ancient weapon. If the power of the ancient weapon could be released, perhaps they could suppress the foreign king. However, if he wanted to suppress the foreign king right now, it was just too difficult. Even though they tried to release more power of the ancient weapon, they were still unable to suppress the foreign king. On the contrary, the foreign king seemed to be at ease. It seemed that the foreign king had not used his full strength yet. Not using his full strength, he had already displayed such terrifying battle strength. If he used his full strength, then the foreign king's battle strength was simply unimaginable. And just as the three Confucian sect ancestors were being suppressed more and more, the rope-type magic treasure that Immeasurable Taoist took out flew to the side of the foreign king. Then, it wrapped around the foreign king. Because the rope-type supreme treasure was invisible at the beginning, therefore, even the foreign king did not notice the rope-type magic treasure. Only when the rope-type magical artifact appeared by the foreign life king's side and revealed itself, did the foreign life king discover the rope-type magical artifact. However, at this time, that rope-type magical artifact already wrapped towards the foreign king. The foreign king wanted to avoid the rope-type magical artifact's entanglement, but it was already too late. That rope-type magical artifact wrapped around the foreign creature king. Whoosh! Meanwhile, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. When Immeasurable Taoist made his move, Lin Feng shot out the shooting sun god arrow. The sun-shooting divine arrow tore through the void, instantly arriving at the foreign king's side. Then, it shot towards the foreign king's chest. The foreign king's expression suddenly changed. Lin Feng and the Immeasurable Taoist duo, he had never taken them seriously before. In the eyes of the foreign king, Lin Feng and the Immeasurable Taoist priest were simply like ants. However, today, he was clearly going to suffer a great loss at the hands of the Immeasurable Taoist and Lin Feng, since his body was entangled by the rope magic treasure unleashed by Taoist Wuliang. There was no way for him to dodge the sun-shooting divine arrow shot out by Lin Feng. Pooh! Accompanied by the sound of the arrow piercing through the flesh, Lin Feng's shooting sun god arrow directly pierced through the foreign king's chest. But what Lin Feng didn't expect was that the shooting sun god arrow was actually stuck in the foreign king's chest. Ah! The king of foreign creatures roared out in anger. His chest was pierced through, but he didn't die. His roar reverberated through the void. Right now, the foreign king's fury simply overflowed into the heavens. What kind of person was he? He was actually schemed against by two ants. It was simply a great humiliation. He struggled violently. The rope-type magical artifact that was wrapped around the foreign king's body was instantly broken free by the foreign king. Then, the foreign king pulled out the shooting sun god arrow that pierced through his chest. He even wanted to break the shooting sun god arrow, but he couldn't do it. Damn, you didn't even die? Lin Feng looked at the foreign king in disbelief. The foreign king's chest was pierced through by the shooting sun god arrow. Under normal circumstances, after a cultivator's body was pierced through by the shooting sun god arrow, the power of the shooting sun god arrow could instantly destroy all the life force of a cultivator. However, the king of the foreign creatures actually survived. This was too terrifying. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Meanwhile, at this very moment, the foreign king who couldn't break the sun shooting divine arrows directly through them onto the ground. Then, he pounced towards Lin Feng and the immeasurable Taoist. The three ancestors of the Confucian sect couldn't injure the foreign king even when they worked together. But Lin Feng and the boundless Taoist priest had managed to injure the king of the otherworldly spirits. The foreign king couldn't endure such humiliation. Right now, he wanted to immediately kill Lin Feng and the immeasurable Taoist. Lin Feng summoned the shooting sun god arrow over, while the immeasurable Taoist took away his rope-type magic treasure. The two of them turned and ran without thinking. Being able to injure the foreign king was already their limit. The foreign king's life force was just too terrifying. So, right now, Lin Feng didn't have much hope of killing the foreign king. At this time, it was better to leave. Kill him. When the three ancestors of the Confucian sect saw that the foreign king was injured by Lin Feng and the immeasurable Taoist, their spirits were lifted. They hurriedly urged the Phoenix Sky cleansing diagram to kill the foreign king. The foreign king wanted to kill Lin Feng and the immeasurable Taoist immediately. But now, he was stopped by the three ancestors of the Confucian sect. The three ancestors of the Confucian sect. How could they be so easy to deal with when their cultivation realm was so high, and they were using a supreme treasure like the ancient weapon? Before, when he wasn't injured, he could still suppress the three ancestors of the Confucian sect. Now that he was injured, his combat strength had dropped greatly. So, facing the attacks of the three ancestors of the Confucian sect, the foreign king didn't dare to be careless. The foreign king controlled the blood moon to fight the three ancestors of the Confucian sect. Seeing that the foreign king was stopped by the three ancestors of the Confucian sect, Lin Feng and the immeasurable Taoist let out a long breath. They stopped and watched the battle from afar. The three ancestors of the Confucian sect wanted to seize the critical moment when the foreign king was injured to kill him. So, at this moment, they no longer held back. The magic power of the three ancestors of the Confucian sect gushed out crazily. Then, all of that magic power poured into the Phoenix Sky cleansing diagram. The fire phoenix formed by the Phoenix Sky cleansing diagram actually grew two heads. The fire phoenix's strength couldn't help but soar. Chapter 48:22. The wings of the two-headed fire phoenix shattered the void. From this, it could be seen how astonishing the two-headed fire phoenix's combat strength had been raised to. Lin Feng held the Hoi Bao and Sunshot Divine Arrow in his hand. If there was a chance, he planned to shoot another arrow at the king of foreign creatures. Immeasurable Taoist was also rubbing his fists, because they really did see some hope of killing the king of foreign creatures. If they really killed the king of foreign creatures, just the origin of the king of foreign creatures alone was enough to make people go crazy. Moreover, the king of foreign creatures definitely had a lot of good things on him, such as that blood-colored moon. Its power was so terrifying that it made people's hearts palpitate. Blood Moon World Annihilation. The king of foreign creatures let out an extremely cold shout. His voice contained monstrous killing intent. A large amount of blood-colored energy escaped from the blood-colored moon. Under the king of foreign creatures' control, the power of the blood-colored moon also increased. However, although the king of foreign creatures was powerful, he was still injured. Forcibly increasing the power of the blood-colored moon consumed a lot of his energy. Therefore, the king of foreign creatures' expression became extremely unsightly. The blood-colored moon and the two-headed fire phoenix collided. This collision was completely different from the previous one. The king of foreign creatures was suppressed by the Confucian sect's three ancestors. Taoist, use your rope magic treasure to sneak attack this grandson, Lin Feng said. Immeasurable Taoist grinned and said, of course. His rope-like magic treasure once again vanished into thin air. Lin Feng took out a quiver. There were many magic arrows in it. The power of the magic arrows was far inferior to the Sunshot Divine Arrow. However, the power of the magic arrows was much greater than the power of the energy arrows. To deal with other creatures, Lin Feng usually used the Sunshot Divine Arrow. The energy arrows were enough. but to deal with a terrifying existence like the king of foreign creatures. Naturally, he had to use all his strength. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One magic arrow after another was shot out by Lin Feng. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng had already shot out over 100 magic arrows. Of course, this wasn't the most terrifying part. The most frightening part was that Lin Feng had hidden the sun-shooting divine arrow among the many arrows. Moreover, Lin Feng had used a special method to change the shape of the shooting sun god arrow. In terms of appearance, the shooting sun god arrow looked exactly the same as other magic arrows. Therefore, it was impossible to tell which arrow was the real shooting sun god arrow. That way, Lin Feng would be able to use the godly sunshot arrow to its maximum potential. It would also be unpredictable. At this moment, when the foreign king who was fighting against the 3 Confucian sect ancestors saw the many arrows shooting at him, his face became extremely gloomy. He had been injured by Lin Feng before. Now, Lin Feng took action again. The foreign king's hatred naturally overflowed into the heavens. However, in the face of Lin Feng's arrow attack, he did not dare to underestimate it. Therefore, when Lin Feng's arrow was shot at him, the foreign king opened his mouth and spat out a large amount of black gas. The black gas swept towards the hundreds of magic arrows shot by Lin Feng. Bang, bang, bang. After the magic arrows were touched by the black gas, they were directly broken. The power of the foreign king's black gas was actually so terrifying. However, at this time, immeasurable Taoist's rope once again silently appeared beside the foreign king. Immeasurable Taoist's rope-type magic treasure could hide his body. Therefore, that was why it was so strange and unpredictable. That rope-type magic treasure once again wrapped around the foreign king's body. This time, the foreign king was once again entangled by immeasurable Taoist's rope-type magic treasure. At the same time, Lin Feng's shooting sun god arrow blocked the powerful black gas spat out by the foreign king. In addition, there were several magic arrows that also blocked the powerful black gas spat out by the foreign king. These magical arrows, together with the sun-shooting divine arrows, shot towards the foreign king of creatures. 2 terrifying beams of light shot out from the foreign king's eyes. Those 2 beams of light directly swept towards those magic arrows. Clang, 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 clang. The magic arrows were shattered one after another. However, there were still 2 magic arrows that dodged the 2 beams of light, including the shooting sun god arrow. A total of 3 magical arrows shot towards the body of the foreign creature king. The sound of flesh piercing through could not help but be heard. Of the 3 magic arrows, 2 of them only shot into the foreign king's body about 3 inches away, and then they were stuck in the foreign king's body. Only the magic arrow formed by the shooting sun god arrow pierced through the foreign king's body. Ah! The foreign king let out an incomparably painful roar. His eyes turned blood red. Such a tyrannical existence like him. Even though his strength had fallen, he was still a top-notch expert. But now, he was actually injured by Lin Feng and immeasurable Taoist's joint attack twice. Extraordinary humiliation. It was truly an extraordinary humiliation. In the endless life of the foreign king, he had never suffered this type of humiliation before. Even though he was suppressed by Kong and Ming back then, it was only because Kong and Ming worked together. And in that battle, Kong and Ming didn't have it easy either. Even though they suppressed him, they were injured because of it. His later fall was most likely related to this injury. That was why. The foreign king was incomparably arrogant. He was a high and mighty existence. Towards dignity and face, these things were naturally extremely important. However, Lin Feng and immeasurable Taoist had already seriously injured his body twice, making the foreign king simply want to go crazy. He began to struggle intensely, wanting to break free from the restraints of immeasurable Taoist's rope-type magic artifact. When the Confucian sect's 3 ancestors saw this scene, they hurriedly flew over. They activated the Phoenix Sky Cleansing Diagram with all their strength. The Phoenix Sky Cleansing Diagram displayed great might, striking that blood-colored moon back into the foreign king's body. The Phoenix Sky Cleansing Diagram transformed back into the original form of the Phoenix Sky Cleansing Diagram. Under the control of the Confucian sect's 3 ancestors, the Phoenix Sky Cleansing Diagram descended from the sky, suppressing the foreign king. The foreign king continued to struggle. The Confucian sect's 3 ancestors suppressed him with all their strength. However, the foreign king struggled too fiercely. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before he would be able to break free. "Little friend Lin, quickly come and kill him," Teacher Zhu shouted loudly. The Confucian sect's 3 ancestors were currently suppressing the foreign king with all their strength, unable to free themselves to kill the foreign king. Therefore, Teacher Zhu asked Lin Feng for help. Lin Feng quickly flew over. He brought out the black dragon sword. Then, he held the black dragon sword with both hands and slashed towards the foreign king's neck. The foreign king's eyes coldly looked at Lin Feng. That pair of cold eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent and hatred. Pooh! In the next moment, Chapter 48-23. He's finally dead. After successfully chopping off the head of the foreign creature king, Yi Zichen's expression changed drastically. Lin Feng finally heaved a sigh of relief. The pressure this foreign king gave off was just too great. So many experts. Activating the ancient weapons, Hoi Bao, sun-shooting divine arrow, and other top-notch treasures. Only then did they kill him. It really wasn't easy. Moreover, the entire process was extremely dangerous. The slightest bit of carelessness could have resulted in death. But now, everything was over. The king of the foreign creatures was killed. He had become a thing of the past. Next, it was time to enjoy the fruits of victory. But as soon as Lin Feng had that thought, his blood suddenly started pumping faster. Sudden impulse. There was danger. Although Lin Feng didn't know what kind of danger there was, when the blood in his body accelerated, Lin Feng didn't dare to hesitate. He hurriedly used the heaven mending technique, and his body instantly disappeared from the spot. At the moment when Lin Feng disappeared, An invisible force directly exploded where Lin Feng was standing. The void was blasted apart. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng's face immediately revealed a shocked expression. Fortunately, he had the ability of sudden impulse. Otherwise, he would have been in danger just now. At this moment, Lin Feng realized that it was actually the head of the foreign king that was chanting the incantation. This made Lin Feng's face reveal an expression of disbelief. The foreign king's head was chopped off, but not only did he not die, he even launched an attack on him. It was really unbelievable. Damn it! The foreign king's head let out an angry roar. He was extremely annoyed that he didn't kill Lin Feng. The foreign king's head then flew towards its own body. Then, the head and the body recombined. What's going on? Everyone was dumbfounded. The head was chopped off, but it could still be reattached. This vitality seemed to be too abnormal, right? Back then, even Confucius and Mencius couldn't kill me, let alone you people. I am an immortal existence, the foreign king coldly said. This guy was arrogant, but he did have the right to be arrogant. His body, he was indeed abnormal. It made people exclaim in admiration, shock, and move. No wonder he had been suppressed this entire time and not killed by the experts of the Confucian sect. In truth, Lin Feng speculated that the experts of the Confucian sect also wanted to kill the otherworldly king, but they had never been able to do so. Then I'll suppress you first. I don't believe that I can't kill you, Lin Feng sneered. Confucian sect's 3 ancestors used Phoenix Sky cleansing diagram to suppress the foreign creature king, temporarily preventing him from breaking free. Taoist Wuliang flew out and took out a Taoist talisman. Then, the Taoist talisman shone with holy light. Next, that talisman was stuck to the foreign king's forehead. The foreign king immediately couldn't move at all. We helped you all suppress the foreign king. We don't want anything else. We only want the foreign king's storage ring. Taoist Wuliang shouted. The 3 ancestors of the Confucian sect looked at each other. Master Zhu nodded and said, "All right, you can take the storage ring." Lin Feng took off the storage ring and put it away for the time being. He would check what was inside later. Taoist Wuliang originally wanted to take the storage ring, but Lin Feng was a step ahead of him. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. If this guy took off the storage ring, there was an 80% chance that he would run away like a wisp of smoke and then keep the storage ring for himself. Lin Feng was too familiar with Taoist Wuliang, which was why Lin Feng took off the storage ring in advance. Seniors, How do you plan to deal with the foreign king? Lin Feng asked. Teacher Zhu said, the foreign king's seal has already been broken. Right now, there is no way to suppress the foreign king here. We plan to head to the outer world and search for the deep-sea devil cave to suppress the foreign king. The main reason was that they couldn't kill the foreign king. If they could kill it, they wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. This junior has heavenly fire. Perhaps I can use it to deal with the foreign king. Let's see if it can burn it to death, Lin Feng said. Hearing this, the eyes of the three ancestors of the Confucian sect lit up. We'll have to trouble you to give it a try, the three ancestors of the Confucian sect said in unison. Lin Feng nodded. Then, he took out the black flame god devouring fire. He didn't take out all of his heavenly fire. After all, one had to be wary of others. The black flame god devouring fire burned fiercely. Taoist Wuliang's talisman was very mysterious. It wasn't affected by the heavenly fire at all. However, what made Lin Feng frown was that his heavenly fire didn't cause too much damage to the foreign king's body. The foreign king's defense was really terrifying. Lin Feng put away the heavenly fire and said, this guy is immune to heavenly fire. It seems like the idea of using heavenly fire to deal with it will fail. The three ancestors of the Confucian sect also felt a little regretful. Then, Master Zhu took out a treasured cauldron, wanting to put the foreign king into it. However, at that moment, the void split open. Another foreign creature walked out. This one was much more pleasing to the eye. It looked very similar to a normal person, but there were a few mysterious runes between its brows. Moreover, this foreign creature was a woman. She held a blood-colored demonic saber in her hand and gently swept it through the void. Billions of saber lights shook out. They swept towards everyone. This foreign creature's appearance was too sudden. Her attack was extremely terrifying. The expressions of Lin Feng and the others couldn't help but change. Hurry up and dodge. Master Zhu couldn't help but shout in a deep voice. Everyone dodged the foreign creature's attack in a somewhat sorry state. This foreign creature was clearly extremely skilled in concealment techniques. Thus, before she attacked, no one discovered her. Even the three ancestors of the Confucian sect couldn't detect her. This should be a racial talent. She was simply a natural-born killer. At the critical moment, Lin Feng took out his ruler's armor. Clang, 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 clang. The saber lights swept across Lin Feng's body, and the sound of collision rang out. Those attacks were all blocked by Lin Feng's ruler's armor. Lin Feng was swept away. He felt his blood and qi royal, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Taoist Wuliang took out his golden armor robe. The golden armor helped him block the attacks of the saber lights. The three ancestors of the Confucian sect had profound realms. They used their own strength to neutralize the opponent's attack. The foreign creature didn't plan on fighting Lin Feng and the others for a long time. Her target was the foreign king. Chapter 48-24. Chase. The three Confucian sect ancestors shouted as they tore through the void and gave chase. Lin Feng and Taoist Wuliang also chased after them, but in the end, they returned without success. The three Confucian sect ancestors had yet to return. By the time Lin Feng and Taoist Wuliang returned to the Confucian sect, the battle in the Confucian sect had already ended. Many Confucian sect cultivators had been killed, so the atmosphere in the Confucian sect was extremely heavy. Capture them. Su Zishan flew over with a group of cultivators, including Su Ming, Wu Tianyuan, and the others. At Su Zishan's order, the Confucian cultivators immediately surrounded Lin Feng's group. What is the meaning of this? Lin Feng asked with a gloomy expression. Su Zishan sneered and continued, Don't you know what I mean? I don't understand. Please explain, Your Excellency, said Lin Feng indifferently. Our Confucian sect has always been very peaceful, but after you all came to our Confucian sect, the otherworldly creatures appeared and rescued the otherworldly king that had been suppressed below for many years. Our Confucian sect has always been heavily guarded, and it is very difficult for others to enter. Unless there is a spy, how could the otherworldly king be rescued? As for who the spy is, there is no need for this seat to explain, right? Su Zishan said with an indifferent expression. He looked at Lin Feng's group with a gaze full of ridicule. As the saying went, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Lin Feng knew that Su Zishan was using this opportunity to make things difficult for them, and his reason was very good. What a sinister fellow. The current situation was indeed extremely disadvantageous for them, but Lin Feng naturally wouldn't admit to something he hadn't done. His voice was gloomy as he said, "The few of us have always been upright and upright. We've never done anything like this. Moreover, the Confucian sect has 3 ancestors and the sect master. Who do you think you are in the Confucian sect? The 3 ancestors and the sect master haven't even said anything yet, and you're already giving orders? You really think too highly of yourself." You, being mocked by Lin Feng like this, Su Zishan's face suddenly sank. He was choked by Lin Feng's words and couldn't say anything. But Su Zishan was someone who had seen great storms and waves, so he quickly calmed down and sneered. The 3 ancestors have gone to chase down the fleeing foreign king, while the sect master has led the Confucian sect's experts to chase down the other fleeing foreign creatures. Now, I naturally have the authority to decide the Confucian sect's matters. Everyone, go ahead and kill them. Avenge the deaths of our Confucian sect cultivators. Do it. Many Confucian sect cultivators called out. Vice sect leader. They couldn't be spies. Previously, they helped us resist those foreign creatures. A Confucian sect cultivator called out. They are just trying to be mysterious. Don't be deceived by these people. Su Zishan said solemnly. Obviously, Su Zishan was just looking for an excuse to get rid of Lin Feng's group. The reason for that was because Lin Feng had defeated Wu Tianyuan and Su Ming using pairs of chess pieces. He had made the 2 of them lose face. Su Zishan was someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Moreover, Su Zishan was very interested in Lin Feng's many treasures and legacies. Thus, he wanted to use this opportunity to get rid of Lin Feng's group. If the 3 ancestors returned and questioned Su Zishan had already thought of what to say. He would use the fact that Lin Feng's group was a spy to slander Lin Feng's group. In truth, Su Zishan already knew that Lin Feng and the immeasurable Taoist had helped the 3 ancestors deal with the foreign king. But Su Zishan pretended not to know. If the 3 ancestors mentioned this matter when they reprimanded him, Su Zishan had already thought of what to do. When the time came, he would apologize to the 3 ancestors and say that he had misunderstood Lin Feng's group and killed Lin Feng's group by mistake. Could it be that the 3 ancestors of the scholarly faction would punish Su Zishan for the deaths of a few outsiders? When the time came, this matter would be reduced to a small matter and nothing more. Su Zishan had thought of every step. It was precisely because of this that Su Zishan dared to kill Lin Feng's group without fear. The group of Confucian sect experts launched a powerful offensive against Lin Feng's group. But Lin Feng's group had never explained this matter. Lin Feng's group knew that Su Zishan wanted to kill them, but he had only found a shoddy excuse. Explaining was useless. Since that was the case, there was no need to waste any more saliva. Immeasurable heavenly Lord, my 18 generations of ancestors. This Taoist has never been slandered like this before. Immeasurable Taoist cursed loudly. Immeasurable Taoist took out several hundred Taoist talismans. The Taoist talismans flew out. Next, the Taoist talismans exploded. A world-destroying energy engulfed the Confucian sect experts attacking Lin Feng's group. Ah! Miserable screams rang out as many Confucian sect experts died miserably. At this time, Lin Feng used the Tao of space to construct a spatial gate. The group of them entered the spatial gate and quickly disappeared without a trace. Swish! With a flash of light, Lin Feng's group appeared in a forest 300 li away. That old bastard Su Zishan should be killed. Du Zhu cursed. Save it. Su Yuanyi of the 3 ancestors is Su Zishan's ancestor. Immeasurable Taoist said. Su Yuanyi was the immortal-looking cultivator of the Confucian sect's 3 ancestors. Lin Feng frowned and said, if Su Yuanyi is Su Zishan's ancestor, why did Su Zishan take teacher Zhu as his master? Immeasurable Taoist said, this is where Su Zishan is smart. In this way, he has the support of 2 big shots behind him. That's why Su Zishan has a high chance of becoming the new sect master. Although we helped the 3 ancestors deal with the otherworldly king, and we have a good relationship with Teacher Zhu. Don't forget that we are still outsiders. Su Zishan is a member of the Confucian sect. Immeasurable Taoist usually didn't seem very reliable, but in reality, he was a very shrewd and intelligent person. His analysis hit the nail on the head. I hope Su Zishan won't vent his anger on Scholar Ning because of us. Lin Feng frowned. He really wanted to kill Su Zishan right now. However, it was clearly not possible for him to do so. Su Zishan himself was terrifying enough. Moreover, he had the Confucian sect behind him. Lin Feng was more worried about Scholar Ning. Given Su Zishan's temperament, it was indeed possible for him to vent his anger on Scholar Ning. Chapter 48-25. Taoist Wu Liang said, "Actually, you don't have to worry about Scholar Ning. Do you really think that Scholar Ning has become stupid from studying? In fact, Scholar Ning is a person who pretends to be stupid. To be able to stay in the Confucian sect for such a long time, if he didn't have any ability, how could he stay there for so long? Hence, elementary Scholar Ning is definitely more powerful than you can imagine." After hearing Taoist Wu Liang's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but think carefully. He felt that Taoist Wu Liang's words were very reasonable. Therefore, Lin Feng nodded and said, "Okay, since that's the case, let's leave this place. Let's return to the White Bone region first." The others naturally didn't have any objections. Everyone directly returned to the White Bone region and White Bone City. After returning, Taoist Wu Liang couldn't wait to pull Lin Feng, wanting to see what good things were in the storage ring of the King of Foreign Creatures. Previously, Lin Feng was worried that the King of Foreign Creatures could sense his storage ring, so he had sealed it and didn't take it out. Now that there was enough time, it was indeed time to see what good things were in the storage ring of the King of Foreign Creatures. Lin Feng sealed the room with a restriction to prevent the King of Foreign Creatures from sensing his storage ring. Then, he took out the storage ring of the King of Foreign Creatures. It was no wonder that Lin Feng was so careful. The main reason was that the King of Foreign Creatures was too terrifying, so he had to be on guard against this existence. Otherwise, if the King of Foreign Creatures found him, it would be terrible. After seeing Lin Feng take out the storage ring of the King of Foreign Creatures, Taoist Wu Liang's eyes began to shine. This guy would be like this every time he saw a treasure, so Lin Feng was already used to it. If Taoist Wu Liang could still remain calm, Lin Feng would feel that it was more strange. Lin Feng's divine thought entered the storage ring. Suddenly, he found that this storage ring was very similar to the mountain river ring. There was a large space inside. In that space, there were mountains of crystals piled up one after another. There were thousands of crystal mountains. Lin Feng took out a crystal stone and said, "There are 4,000 to 5,000 crystal stones piled up here, and they are this kind of crystal stone. What the hell is this? This is the first time I've seen this kind of crystal." When Taoist Wu Liang saw the crystal stone that Lin Feng took out, he suddenly showed a surprised expression. He asked, "Is what you just said true? Are there really 4,000 to 5,000 of these mountains of crystals inside?" Seeing Immeasurable Taoist's reaction, Lin Feng guessed that Immeasurable Taoist already knew what those crystals were. He nodded and said, "Yes, there are indeed so many mountains of crystals. You still haven't told me what they are." This is a black jade sky crystal. It isn't something from our universe, but rather something from the universe of the foreign creatures. And this kind of black jade sky crystal is good stuff. It's equivalent to the immortal stones in our universe, and it's equivalent to a high-grade immortal stone. After hearing Immeasurable Taoist's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Actually, in the space-time of their universe, immortal stones were also precious resources. Low-grade immortal stones were relatively common. However, middle-grade immortal stones were relatively rare. The immortal stones circulating in the market were basically all low-grade immortal stones. Although there was an exchange rate between middle-grade and low-grade immortal stones, in reality, low-grade immortal stones could not be exchanged for middle-grade immortal stones. Very few people would use high-grade immortal stones to exchange for low-grade immortal stones. As for high-grade immortal stones, that was even rarer. High-grade immortal stones were very precious. High-grade immortal stones were precious because they were too difficult to find. More than 90% of the immortal stones that could be mined from an immortal vein were low-grade immortal stones. Middle-grade immortal stones were close to 10%. High-grade immortal stones were less than 1%. Most of the time, not even a single high-grade immortal stone could be found. Therefore, high-grade immortal stones were very precious. There were a total of 4,000 to 5,000 black jade sky crystals in this storage ring. Each of them was about 100 million. Added together, that was 4 to 500 billion. It was equivalent to 4 to 500 billion high-grade immortal stones. This was too shocking. It was simply enough to support a top sect for hundreds of thousands of years without any problem. Immeasurable Taoist said, "Quickly see if there are any other treasures." Now, this damn Taoist was already dancing with joy. Even if he and Lin Feng divided these black jade sky crystals equally, he would still be able to get more than 200 billion black jade sky crystals. When the time came, what couldn't he buy? Money could make the devil turn millstones. Wasn't this the truth? Lin Feng continued to explore the internal space of the storage ring. There were many things in the internal space of the storage ring. For example, there were mountains of various ores, refining materials, and so on. These things could be forged into powerful divine weapons and then used to equip the army. In addition, there were also a large number of spirit fields in the internal space of the storage ring. In those spirit fields, there were all kinds of spirit herbs. Now, many of the spirit herbs had been growing for more than 1,000,000 years. All of them had turned into immortal herbs. There were probably tens of thousands of immortal herbs. There were even more immortal herbs than immortal herbs. Even the rich Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal an extremely shocked expression when he saw those immortal herbs and spirit herbs. The number of immortal herbs and spirit herbs was simply shocking. In addition, Lin Feng also saw all kinds of Dharma treasures. There were also many, and there were more than 100 immortal artifact-level Dharma treasures. However, there were no Dharma treasures above Sage artifact level. This was a bit of a pity. Lin Feng reckoned that the Dharma treasures above Sage artifact level were all on the body of that otherworld creature. For example, the blood moon that he saw earlier. It was definitely no small matter. In addition, Lin Feng also found all kinds of rare treasures. There were many rare treasures that even he had never seen before, and he didn't know if they were rare treasures in the otherworld. Originally, Lin Feng wanted to look for some Tao teachings, but he couldn't find any. It seemed that the otherworld king was very cautious. He had memorized all the Tao teachings in his mind and didn't leave behind any books or jade tubes. Even so, Lin Feng was already satisfied. If he couldn't get the Tao teachings of the otherworld king, then so be it. The various things collected in the otherworld king's storage ring were already shocking enough. Everything. Lin Feng, an immeasurable Taoist, basically divided them equally. After immeasurable Taoist left Lin Feng's place, a voice suddenly resounded in Lin Feng's mind. "Lin Feng, how about we negotiate?" Chapter 48-26. Murong Yuxuan had been suppressed by Lin Feng for a while now. Recently, Murong Yuxuan hadn't done anything. Only today did she take the initiative to contact Lin Feng. In truth, Lin Feng wanted to continue wasting the chart of Godly King's energy. After some time, he would try to enter the chart of Godly Kings again. Since Murong Yuxuan had taken the initiative to contact him, Lin Feng wanted to talk to Murong Yuxian and see what she wanted to say. Lin Feng said, "You want to negotiate with me? That depends on what you can give me." Murong Yuxuan said, "You can gain my friendship and the friendship of Godly King Valley. It's very important to you. After all, you're the master of Sin Realm. However, you should know that Sin Realm is surrounded by danger. It's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Apart from my friendship with Godly King Valley, I can also give you many good things. For example, high-grade immortal stones, immortal herbs, immortal pills, and so on. What do you think?" Lin Feng said indifferently, "Are you trying to paint a picture of me?" "Of course not." Murong Yuxuan said, "I'm being very sincere." Lin Feng said, "But women are fickle. Moreover, I don't trust Godly King Valley. Moreover, compared to the things you've mentioned, I'm actually more interested in you." Murong Yuxuan said, "I already have a fiancé. You should know this already." Lin Feng smiled. "Of course I know. What's wrong?" Are you still thinking of keeping your chastity for your fiancé? That's what a woman should do, Morong Yuxuan said. Lin Feng nodded. It's really admirable that you have such thoughts. Right now, I seem to have become an unpardonable demon, and you're a delicate and weak woman. However, that's not the case. Our ancestors shed blood and sacrificed themselves for this era. However, you great forces once massacred the so-called sinner's blood in order to snatch the resources that originally belonged to us. Therefore, no matter what I do to you, I have a clear conscience. Morong Yuxuan said, that's something done by the older generation. What does it have to do with us? Lin Feng sneered. How laughable. Bloodlines are passed down, and so is hatred. Since there is hatred, why would they care about when or which generation it was formed? Back then, if you had the chance to kill me, would you have let me go? Don't ever say that you'll let me go. You might be able to fool a 3-year-old child, but I don't. Morong Yuxuan said, our God King Valley has always been a neutral faction. We don't have any deep grudges with the sinner's blood. Lin Feng sneered and said, but the enmity between the floating cloud palace and the sinner's blood is very deep. You will marry into the floating cloud palace in the future, so why would I let the tiger return to the mountain? I won't get involved in this matter, Morong Yuxuan said. There's a saying that goes, a person in the underworld has no choice. When the time comes, even if you don't want to participate, the reality of the situation will force you to participate in these things. Therefore, it won't be so easy for me to let you go. Of course, I didn't say that I can't let you go. In fact, if you promise me one thing, I will let you go, Lin Feng said. Morong Yuxuan frowned slightly. She originally thought that Lin Feng's attitude wouldn't be as unyielding as before after a period of time. At that moment, Lin Feng was at a stage where it was easy to talk to him. Therefore, as long as she promised great benefits, she would definitely be able to negotiate with Lin Feng. However, after coming into contact with Lin Feng, Morong Yuxuan discovered that Lin Feng was still as unyielding as before. Morong Yuxuan also knew that what Lin Feng said might cause her to pay a great price, but she had no other choice. Therefore, she could only follow Lin Feng's train of thought. Morong Yuxuan asked, what do you want me to do? Be my woman, Lin Feng said. Dream on, Morong Yuxuan said coldly. Morong Yuxuan said coldly. Lin Feng said, I'm not done yet. Morong Yuxuan ignored Lin Feng. Said Lin Feng, just be my woman for one day. I don't think the Yunfu Palace would allow their direct descendant to marry a woman who has an affair with another man, right? Said Lin Feng, ignoring Lin Feng. When the time comes, I can let you go without worry. Of course, don't worry, I will take responsibility for you. I will send someone to God King Valley to explain this matter. I will say that both of us are in love with each other. This way, your reputation won't be tarnished, and neither will the reputation of God King Valley be tarnished. What do you think? After hearing Lin Feng's words, Morong Yuxuan said angrily, Lin Feng, you are really a shameless villain. Look at what you're saying. How am I shameless? I am giving you a chance to live. You should be thanking me, Lin Feng said indifferently. Then, his expression turned cold. In order to survive, there are times when you have to do something. Even if you have to bear a bad reputation, you still have to do it. I am different from you. I have too many responsibilities on my shoulders. Is this the reason why you can openly possess her? Morong Yuxuan said sarcastically. Lin Feng said, if you think that this reason isn't enough, then I will give you another reason. A peerless beauty like you should be my woman. I am not willing to become another man's woman. Morong Yuxuan was slightly stunned. Then, she scolded angrily, shameless. I will give you some time to think about it. Wait until you have thought about it. Then, give me a reply, Lin Feng said, and then cut off the connection with Morong Yuxuan. No matter what, Lin Feng wouldn't let Morong Yuxuan go so easily. That night, outside White Bone City, 4 cultivators walked in. They were 4 cultivators. They were all wearing long robes. Their faces were ugly, but their auras were extremely terrifying. It was as if they were creatures that had walked out of hell. Among the 4, the first one was a blind man with a zither on his back. The second one was a lame man with a chessboard in his hand. The third one was a deaf man with a bamboo flute in his hand. The fourth one was a mute man with a jade flute in his hand. Wherever the four cultivators passed by, the flowers and trees would rapidly wither and die. Is this the place? The blind man asked. Chapter 48:27. The next day, the Mu siblings invited Lin Feng for a chat. It seemed that the Mu siblings were quite well informed. Lin Feng had not been in Whitebone City for long, yet the Mu siblings had already discovered him. Lin Feng did not reject their invitation. He had wanted to bring Immeasurable Taoist, Du Zhu, and the others with him. However, Immeasurable Taoist and the others happened to come looking for Lin Feng. They said that they wanted to go out for a drink and asked Lin Feng if he wanted to go. Lin Feng almost fell to the ground. The poison ancestor was indeed very interested in drinking flower wine. However, Immeasurable Taoist was a Taoist. Lin Feng was speechless. Lin Feng was speechless. He was a Buddhist monk, and surprisingly, he wanted to drink wine with prostitutes. I want to go, Lin Feng said. Hee, if you want to go, then let's go together. There's nothing going on anyway. Immeasurable Taoist said. Earlier, the Mu siblings sent someone to invite me over for a chat. I wanted to invite you all, but since you want to drink, I won't invite you. Have fun, Lin Feng said. The Mu siblings? Aren't they the children of the city lord? Hee, I remember that Mu Qinyu is a top-notch girl. After we're done with business, you can try asking her out. If she comes with you, it means that she's interested in you. Brother, don't worry. We won't be coming back tonight. We'll leave the house empty for you. Immeasurable Taoist laughed. This damn Taoist was really capable of saying anything. Lin Feng dared to guarantee that there was no Taoist more evil than this damn Taoist. I'm a gentleman, Lin Feng said. Brother, do you have some misunderstanding about the term gentleman? Immeasurable Taoist said with a smile. Lin Feng threw a kick at him. However, Immeasurable Taoist, who was already prepared, quickly dodged. He dodged Lin Feng's kick. Then, he smiled and said, Then we'll be leaving. I wish you a happy day. Young master, we're leaving too. Have fun. Du Zhu and the others also grinned. Then, the group of guys ran out. Lin Feng was speechless. He realized that the people around him were a bunch of indecent people. Originally, the evil Dominator Saint and the two Ghost Emperors were considered decent people. However, after spending a lot of time with Du Zhu, he felt that it was a good idea. He was also led astray by Du Zhu. Now, even the evil Dominator Saint and the two Ghost Emperors had become extremely improper. Lin Feng suddenly thought of a saying. One is marked by the company one keeps. The ancients didn't lie to me. In the evening, Lin Feng went to the banquet alone. The Mu family sent a beast carriage. Lin Feng rode a beast carriage to the Mu clan. After arriving at the Mu family, Lin Feng got down from the beast carriage. Lin Gongzi. Mu Qinyu was already waiting for Lin Feng outside. She had a charming smile on her face. This woman exuded an astonishing charm from head to toe. And this charm, it made people go crazy. Fortunately, Lin Feng's self-control was quite strong. If it was any other man, they would have already been captivated by Mu Qinyu. Fairy Qinyu. Lin Feng cupped his fists. Mu Qinyu said apologetically, Not long ago, brother was here waiting for young master's arrival with this servant. However, father just sent someone to look for brother. It seemed that he had something important to discuss, so brother left. Brother asked this servant to apologize to Lin Gongzi on his behalf. Lin Feng said, No one can avoid suddenly encountering some important matters to deal with, so I understand Brother Mu. Therefore, Brother Mu doesn't need to apologize, and I have never blamed Brother Mu. Mu Qinyu said, Young master is truly magnanimous. Let's not talk outside. Let's go inside and talk. All right. Lin Feng nodded and entered the hall with Mu Qinyu. After the two of them sat down, a servant girl brought out immortal wine, dishes, and some spirit fruits. This time, I actually have a rather important and urgent matter to tell Lin Gongzi. Mu Qinyu said, Oh, what's the matter? Lin Feng asked curiously. Mu Qinyu asked, Young master, do you know that Crown Prince Di Wudao has broken through to the true immortal realm? Lin Feng raised an eyebrow slightly. He hadn't expected Mu Qinyu to know about Crown Prince Di Wudao. Lin Feng said without batting an eyelid. Tell me what you've heard. Mu Qinyu said, we received some news that Di Wudao has secretly left the Crown Prince's palace. He's currently heading towards the White Bone region. It's said that he's coming for Lin Gongzi. After hearing this news, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Di Wudao had only just broken through to the true immortal realm. However, Lin Feng knew that with Di Wudao's talent and accumulation, he could definitely challenge those higher-ranked true immortals. Currently, he could only deal with those lower-ranked true immortals. Right now, he was probably still no match for Di Wudao. If Di Wudao really found him, it would indeed be an extremely troublesome matter. Moreover, in the Undying Realm, there were so many factions supporting Di Wudao. Di Wudao had hundreds of people responding to his call. When Di Wudao appeared, the experts he would have to face wouldn't be as simple as just Di Wudao alone. Therefore, this news was very important to him. He had to prepare early. If he could prepare early, he might be able to get rid of Di Wudao. This wasn't impossible. Of course, even if he couldn't get rid of Di Wudao, he could at least deal with some sudden dangers. Di Wudao had hidden too deeply, and his methods were too terrifying. If he wanted to deal with this person, he had to be on his guard. Thank you, Fairy, for telling me this. Let me toast you 3 cups of wine, Lin Feng said. Then, he poured a cup of wine. He downed it in 1 gulp. After downing the first glass, Lin Feng downed 2 more glasses in a row. He downed all of them in 1 gulp. Mu Qinyu stood up and knelt in front of Lin Feng like a maid. She took the wine cup in Lin Feng's hand. She said flirtatiously, Sir, we're all on the same side, so please don't thank me. However, if you really want to thank me, you'll have to listen to me later. Lin Feng said without batting an eyelid. Of course I'll listen to you, Fairy. However, what do you want me to do? Mu Qinyu said with a smile, I just want to drink with you, sir. However, I don't like the way you drank just now, so let's change the way we drink. Lin Feng asked, Change the way we drink? What kind of method should I use? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.